still have music.
All right. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me? Great. Awesome. All right, guys. This is our first live stream. We're so excited to do this. We're kind of troubleshooting with it as we go. I think we've got it, though. Can everybody hear me good? Let me know in the chat that you can hear me. Oh, James Barker, what's up? Make sure everything is kosher. Awesome, awesome, cool. Yep, we are in the Hellbent Holler studio. We actually recorded a couple of podcasts this weekend, so we've got some really cool stuff coming up for you guys. We had such a blast doing that. It's been such a rainy weekend. So we actually hammered out a lot of stuff that we needed to kind of catch up on. I know we've been leaving you guys hanging for a while, so it's been really nice to kind of catch up on a lot of stuff and record some podcasts and have some good conversations and work on getting some video done and out. So we got that LBL video that's coming from when we went to the Dogman conference with the Paranormal Roundtable. And that'll be out soon, and that's going to be awesome.
We haven't really released anything since the Dogman conference.
No.
From Virginia. All right. Anyway, yeah, we had a chance to go to the Dogman conference in Paris, Tennessee. We had an absolute blast. Probably the best time we've had at one of those events ever, right?
Yeah, we had a really, really good time. Is there anybody in the chat that went to the Dogman conference? It was really cool. We met a lot of really cool people, and we just overall, it was just such a great conference. Hello, everybody. Oh, you passed the exit for LBL on your motorcycle trip, Ed? That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yep, we are so excited. All right, so a lot of people submitted questions. We're going to let some people come into the chat and come onto the live stream. If you're watching this post facto, you can always tune in for the next live stream. We're just doing a Q&A today and kind of hanging out and talking and just having a little Monday night sit down. It's Labor Day weekend, so I think everybody's kind of tired and just wants to hang out and have a good time. I know everything that happened at it. Do you, Matt? Everything, all the details. Cool. Louisville, Kentucky.
Alan Lassiter from upstate South Carolina.
What's that?
Alan Lassiter is from upstate South Carolina.
Well, hello, neighbor. Oh, it's Have a Knife Day. How are you doing today?
Jonestead Farm went to the Dogman conference.
Okay, cool. It was fun. They did a great job. Josh Turner did an awesome job putting that on and bringing up people to do barbecue, and the speakers were awesome. It was really good to see Barton Nunley speaking and to hear Martin Grove's account directly. That was really, really great. All right.
Digital Currency Dude wants to know, have you ever seen a Dogman?
Have I? Well, okay. I have never seen a Dogman like walking across the road or anything, but we have a really good thermal image. I think that's as close to a Dogman as you can possibly get in terms of like evidence. We have that thermal image that looks exactly like what you would imagine a Dogman to, and what a lot of witnesses have described as being a Dogman, with the large upright ears And that it looks like it's got a snout, it's got eyes. You can see that image in our what was that, the second video of the werewolf experiments. I kind of I refer to it, and then I show the image so you can get a look at that. But we got that image on our first trip to the LBL last summer in June.
And then our second visit, we both saw something, but we're not sure if that's
I'm not sure if
Dogman.
that was a Dogman. The physical, like the physicality of that thing that we saw, it was almost super black. It was like so dark. It was like the absence of light, like the total absence of light. But this creature that I saw, and I just saw it kind of out of the corner of my eye. And this is right after we find that tent in the land between the lakes. Its arms were unnaturally long, and they like kind of swung with a strange like gait to them, you know. And then it was, I think a day or two later, we were over by that large abandoned metal building, and we're coming up from the side of the lake, and we're coming up the hill, and we get over that hill, and then Joe sees the same thing I saw a couple miles away, but like that same just ultra dark figure that just was like unnaturally long arms, and it looks like what you would see like a drawing of a Wendigo in a way. That's the only thing I can liken it to.
It didn't have horns or antlers.
No,
It didn't seem like it had a muzzle.
but it was the physicality of it was just these
Lanky,
long, like skinny arms, and then the legs were like,
didn't seem like it could move as quick as what we actually saw it moving.
yeah.
What I saw looked very lanky and just clumsy looking, but
Yeah.
it didn't move clumsy like that in the slightest.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was so weird. It was like being at a family reunion. Yeah, Impromptu Truth just said that the Dogman conference is like being at a family reunion. There are people there that I met in person for the first time. That, again, that's my first time meeting them. And it felt like I've known them my entire life. So yeah, it did feel like a family reunion. Steve Isdall. Yeah, Steve Isdall's got some interesting stuff on his page. It's you see a lot of crazy stuff in Alaska.
Alan Lassiter's.
Anna, yes, that's your Jonestown. Okay, your Jonestown farm. Hey, Anna, how are you? I think she actually camped in the LBL and was watching our videos while she was in the camper, watching videos, and then like, oh, why are we here? Why are we camping here? Have you ever been to the Uwharrie National Forest? No, we have never been to the Uwharrie. We kind of avoided the Uwharrie for a while because there's so many people going there because there's so many stories coming out of it. It's a very small national forest. It's very, very small. It's very, very small. There's a lot of recreation that goes on there, horseback riding, etc. And we were kind of avoiding it for a while because it seems like you would go out there and most of the people were going out there and running into other Bigfoot hunters. So we were kind of like concerned about doing that. So we wanted the heat to die down in Uwharrie before we decided to go in.
And again, tonight's not really going to be any sort of a structure to it. We're just going to kind of go through. This is a test run for this live streaming equipment.
Yeah.
And if you could see what we see, we have taken a lot of our equipment we use for field investigations, and we've kind of rigged it up.
Yeah.
We have the recorder that we use with our parabolic microphone. We're running mics through that. We've got the camera that we use in the field streaming from
Hey,
it.
D.A. Roberts.
So we had to, this is basically a test run, and that's why we asked for questions tonight.
Yeah.
There's no real agenda for this evening.
We didn't have a plan. Yeah. We actually did a really great, we recorded some podcast stuff today. That was so much fun. We're really enjoying doing this podcast. Somebody asked if we have a plan on going to the Salt Fork Bigfoot conference. We don't have it like in our plans right now, but you never know what's going to happen. Letitia's on here.
But it's probably Barton because he is under some sort of weird YouTube throttle.
So YouTube has banned Barton Memley
from commenting or doing anything like that at all. So
he's too dangerous.
I'm gonna go through some of these questions that we've gotten, guys.
Yeah,
And if you guys have any
let's
like
go.
Q&A,
Yeah.
put it up into the comment section.
Joe's kind of monitoring the chat a little bit, and he's going to be asking me some of these questions. So I went on Instagram today, I went on Facebook, and I went into YouTube, and I asked you guys if you had any questions for us. And because we wanted to kind of do a Q&A, since this is kind of our trial run for live streaming. So Joseph.
So
yeah, James, Barton knows too much.
Barton knows too much.
He knows too much.
On YouTube, Lagai211 asked what the most exciting adventure that you have had and what's the most dangerous. I'd say the LBL second one was the most exciting. And I'm still going to stand by Panthertown Valley being the most dangerous thing that we've done.
Panthertown was really, really dangerous. That really prompted us to start doing this, and it was pretty dangerous. LBL's been kind of the most interesting one because there's so much there, and I feel like Joe and I actually joked about moving up there and researching the LBL like full time because we absolutely could. I feel like we could go there every day.
It's too many damn tornadoes, though. So,
for years, and then we would not even scratch the surface of all the weirdness that's going on there. I think somebody just mentioned you see all kinds of things in the LBL, and that's absolutely true. We have experienced like paranormal, like ghost activity. We've experienced Dogman activity. We've experienced Sasquatch activity.
We've experienced activity that we have no clue what in the
it's
hell it is.
Unknown, freaky stuff activity.
Yeah, that's definitely been the most interesting spot that we've gone to. And again, as far as the most dangerous goes, we don't really have any video from our Panthertown. Our Panthertown's kind of what got us involved in trying to document a lot of this stuff. We were kind of going out and starting to legend trip, and first place we went to was Panthertown Valley, and to this day that was like the most terrifying thing that we've done, and it's what kind of catapulted us into really doing this almost full time.
And we'll actually we go into the story of Panthertown Valley. We go into that on the podcast that I'm releasing this week. So if you guys want to check that out, we kind of go into Panthertown Valley and what occurred, what happened to us there, what happened to me there. And you can go check that out because that's going to be an interesting episode. Did the conference, let's see here, let me scroll up. God, this chat is going so fast. All right. Did the conference give you the impression that not all dogmen are bad? Someone gave me that impression recently. The live stream quality is top notch, by the way. Thank you so much. This is our first live stream ever. We haven't even tested this yet. So thank you for the compliment. You get some stories about dogmen not being bad, but in my opinion, I haven't come to that conclusion yet. I'm very wary about pretty much everything, unless I'm given like really good solid evidence to the contrary. So I'm very, very wary of Dogman, and I haven't heard a lot of positive stories about Dogman or people's interactions with Dogman. It seems unnatural, and
I think that it runs the gamut from being just completely hostile to mankind to at best maybe being a bit indifferent.
Yeah.
I hear those same stories you hear, but I think a lot of that is it's almost like the Disneyfication of nature. You know what I'm saying? Where people just they want to humanize the phenomenon, and they're looking for the best in it. And it's just the most credible stories that I've ever heard. None of them are that positive.
No, not in my opinion either.
And just because it didn't attack you when you saw it, well, I mean, people see tigers in the wild and not every tiger attacks them. And you can't walk away from that going, oh, tigers will never hurt you. I saw one time and it didn't kill me. So therefore, all of them. So yeah, I think there's definitely some encounters and some experiences that people have out there that are not fatal or aggressive, but I just think that's the circumstances involved with it, and they very well could have gone that way. So.
Digital Currency Dude says, how did y'all wake up about cryptids being real? I think it was, I was really involved in paranormal research before I got into cryptids. Joe was more involved in cryptids and more interested in cryptids. and we got together and kind of melded our interests. But I think it was just us going out and being in the woods and being out there in remote areas and just, you always have those doubts in the back of your mind. You're open to the possibility of things, but you have those doubts in the back of your mind, like, oh, it could be this or that. Then we started having really strange things happen when we were way out in the woods, and things that are definitely not people, things that, that can't be explained by normal circumstances. So I think when that came about, that's what led us to believe, okay, absolutely, there is something going on here.
Yeah, I had a sighting of something when I was a kid, actually on a Boy Scout camping trip. If anybody's ever been on the Boy Scouts before, there's a thing called Order of the Arrow where you're out for like a weekend and you don't sleep in tents. It was like really my first time, like kind of sleeping under the stars. And, you're already a kid. They drop you off out in the middle of the woods. I mean, and we've been camping a lot with Boy Scouts, but you're in a group, you're in a tent and all that. And I had a hard time sleeping that night. And that was the one thing that made me think it wasn't a dream, because I hadn't fallen asleep. But anything, I saw something kind of peering at me from behind a tree that wasn't a person. I don't know what it was, but over the years, you kind of second guess yourself, I mean, we still kind of second guess ourselves on stuff. We'll have experiences when we're out and then come back home and go, did that really happen?
Yeah.
But I think it was, again, just the first time we went out to Panthertown Valley and the weird stuff that happened, that we walked away going, all right, there's definitely something to this. Because I'd been involved in Bigfoot research for like years, like all through Georgia, even in Louisiana, and just never really had anything happen after that first sighting. And it wasn't until we came up here and started looking into this part of the country and this region that we actually started to have stuff happen repeatedly, and things that both of us would witness, and some stuff we were able to get on camera, on audio. For me, it was definitely, I think, the Dogman thermal footage that we got. And I'll tell you, we've had this conversation after then. There's always still a little bit of doubt, because when you get down to it, this is a crazy subject. You have to take a moment to kind of step outside yourself and go, really? I mean, this goes against everything that you're really told growing up and how you understand reality or acts. There's things running around in the woods. And it wasn't until, I'll tell you, we heard Martin Groves talk that.
Yeah, I think that if you had any kind of doubt in your mind that these things are real when it comes to Dogman, I think that Martin Groves' story really, I mean, that just, he's just completely unassailable. His story is so compelling. He told that at the Dogman conference on stage. And I have never met a person that is so sincere and so believable. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to square the circle in a way. You're just like, oh my God, like you have a moment when you listen to his encounter, you have a moment where you're like, oh my God, Dogman is real. Like if you had any kind of doubt in the back of your mind, it's like, oh my God, it's absolutely real.
Stephen Taylor talks about that guy. There's a guy from Dover, Tennessee, and you and I have not had a chance to talk about this yet. There's a guy from Dover, Tennessee that just went up to Alaska hunting and is missing right now. Stephen, I read that story today, and it's weird because this guy's a really experienced outdoorsman. Everybody who knows him from Tennessee is going that this is not the sort of guy to get lost in the woods. And he was only traveling a half mile from where he and his friends were to, I believe, their camp, but he went missing in that half mile, and they can't find any trace of him at all. They thought maybe he got attacked by a bear at first, but they've gone around. They can't find any scenes of like a bear attack or anything like that. So for right now, this guy just disappeared into just thin air at this point. So we're definitely following that story. It's got all the elements of just another missing 411 case.
Yeah.
So.
And it seems like those kind of stories are coming up more and more often. It's, I feel like something is building, something is growing. There's something ramping up. And I don't know if it's the presence of the other out there. And when I talk about the other, I talk about that includes Sasquatch, Dogman, any kind of supernatural being. We're going to refer to it as the other, like Timothy Renner does from Strange Familiars. It feels like something is ramping up out there, that the other is just getting more and more intense, and that you have more and more of these encounters. I don't know if it's that people feel more comfortable coming forward, or if it's just more of this is happening.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more normalized now. Where before, you would maybe come forward and talk about a weird occurrence that happened to you, and you would just be met with just universal like scorn. You're a crazy person. And now there's almost like a support network out there for people, no matter how crazy the story sounds. And goes directly into KJV under God asked if we'd ever heard of Bat Squatch, maybe other Sasquatch like creatures, maybe the lizard man. I used to actually correspond with J.C. Johnson back when he was alive, God rest his soul. And he would talk about those Sasquatch creatures that had wings come out from behind their backs. And that's why you would find lines of tracks that would just disappear in the middle of a trail. And at the time, I just thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. You know what I'm saying? But guess what? I used to think the Dogman was maybe the second craziest thing I'd ever heard of in my entire life. And now we're on the side of the fence that we think that thing actually exists. So I've heard of them. I used to just completely dismiss it. But now, I don't know, man, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe.
Yeah.
As far as the lizard man goes, we're actually going to check out Skateboard Swamp over the next month or so.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's weird. Jessi and I are both like, if you watch our videos, we're really into equipment, really into gear. We're really into knives. And I do a lot of like knife selling and buying online on like Facebook groups and knife forums and stuff like that. And a dude that I sold a knife to last year, when he found out what we do as far as the Hellbent Holler thing, he's from the Skateboard Swamp area. And he first told me that, he goes, if you guys ever come here, my family was responsible for the hoax of the lizard man. And I'm just like, all right, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, we want to know the truth regardless of what it is. And so for a couple of days, it was about the hoax. And then he changes his story all of a sudden. And he goes, well, that's what we tell people because we don't really want a lot of people down here messing around. But, and then he all of a sudden switched over to it's real. So was he pulling my leg on either end of it? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But it's got us intrigued enough that we're going to go out there and actually check it out.
Yeah, we're going to go check that out. There's a lot of weird stuff down there. There's also a lot of earthquakes in that area. So that's what kind of makes me think about if when there's like a disturbance in the ground or there's like a seismic change or something like that, the Earth's tectonic plates are moving and earthquakes happen. I think that somehow opens up the possibility that there could be interdimensionality or portals there, that disturbance maybe will shake something up. So there's a lot of earthquakes around Bishopville. So we're really excited about going out there and getting on the ground and actually checking it out.
And there's still reports to this day of people seeing
lizard
stuff like that.
Yeah.
It may not make the news, but you'll still hear about it social media is kind of a double-edged sword. There's so many witness accounts out there that sometimes you kind of have to separate out maybe just people with an overactive imagination from what's really happening. But we've seen on like non-cryptid like groups and like comments under news stories and stuff like that about people who are still having sightings down to this day, so.
For sure. All right. We do have a lot of comments here.
Did you get your trip the other night put together yet? If you're talking about the LBL one, she's in the process of getting the footage together right now.
Yeah, I'm having to, because we actually used our AGM thermal that night.
Mm-hmm. The other outing we went to, nothing happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we went out. There's an area that we had gotten a very interesting email. And if the guy who sent us that email's watching or sees this later, please get back in touch with us.
I feel like we say that on everything we put out because we really need that guy to get back to us. But yeah, we went out the last time we went out, nothing really happened. We used all of our equipment. We kind of did a stakeout that night. We had all of our equipment set up and nothing really happened. It was a lot of cicadas. So
yeah, a lot of cicadas. It really ruined. We ran the parabolic microphone and then we're real digital audio recorder heavy. I don't even know how many. We have stationary ones. We have little ones that we drop around as we move around, but the cicadas drowned all the audio out. We couldn't have picked up anything at all from it.
Hang on, Drew. Michigan Dogman.
When is Drew on there?
Yes. So. Michigan Dogman.
But all right. Let's see what else we got here. Posted about the hunter, the hunted. Legends say that a Native American shaman died and put his spirit in the werewolf during the Daniel Boone era. That's talking about the LBL. Yeah, there's definitely, and Elijah Henderson actually talked about this recently, that there was a train of thought that Native American shapeshifters down there might be responsible for at least some of the strange goings on at the LBL.
Yeah.
So
Digital Currency Dude says, seems like there's a link between people who are aware of NWO are more likely to be aware of cryptids. What do you think? I think that if you are a person who is prone to asking questions and being more open-minded to possible conspiracies, then you're going to be willing to ask questions about what's going on when it comes to cryptids. That you're going to be more open-minded to the possibility of there being cryptids out there, that you don't have that normalcy bias that just tells you that what you see is what you get at all times, and that there's nothing else out there beyond what we know for certain right now. So I think that if you're more aware of, what could be and what is going on behind the scenes, maybe you're more aware of the possibility of cryptids being out there.
Or you're more likely to talk about it openly, because as we've been doing this, I can't count the amount of times that somebody you always get the same thing. Oh, you guys hunt Bigfoot, and they kind of guffaw, ha ha ha. And then, I just don't believe in that crap. And then give them a few minutes, and then they'll all of a sudden go, well, there was this one time that your uncle was like that. Your uncle did not believe in Bigfoot. And then all of a sudden he goes, well, there was one time that.
Yeah, there was one time he was camping, and I'm from Western North Carolina. I'm from Haywood County, North Carolina. And my uncle was out camping in the Pisgah National Forest, and he went to go pee. They were all hanging out drinking by the fire, and then he went to go pee, and he's standing there, and in the darkness ahead of him, he sees like these red eyes, like these two big red eyes just in the darkness. And I was like, okay. I was like, why didn't you tell me this? He goes, oh, I didn't think about it. I was like, well, how high up were they? He goes, well, they had to be up about, I'd say about 8 or 9 feet. I was like, okay, maybe you should mention these things. I do this kind of work. So, but he goes, yeah, I guess it could have been. I was like, yeah, you don't have a freaking 9-foot tall deer out there with red glowing eyes. This is not normal, So a lot of people laugh about it until they have an encounter, but then for some reason, and it might be like an Oz factor thing, that they just kind of like erase it in their mind and they don't remember it until they're talking about it later on. Pisgah is spooky, James. Yeah, I grew up on the edge of the Pisgah National Forest. I'd say from where I grew up, the house I grew up in, it was probably about a mile to where you could go into the edge of the forest.
Digital Currency Dude says the Bible talks about beasts killing us at a certain point. Yeah, that's something that we've talked about lately, that in the end times, the beasts of the earth are supposed to kill like a quarter or a third of the population. And the beasts of the earth don't sound like bears or wolves. They sound like maybe something a little bit more severe, maybe like these things that are actually out there that we're looking for right now.
Yeah.
So.
Ivy Blue says, I've been to the Pisgah National Forest. It is so beautiful and massive. I believe that there are many dogmen running about in those woods. It would not surprise me. That is such a rugged area, that there's a lot of stuff hiding in those woods that people just don't know about or they've forgotten about over the years. But it's definitely a very, very rugged place. That's my home area. So.
And then Ghetto Yeti asks, did we see the Dogman skull J.C. Johnson had? No, I did not. I've never even heard of that before. If you want to send us something at hellbentholler.com, I'm sorry, email address, hellbentholler@gmail.com. I'd love to hear about it. So I would definitely love to hear about it.
Mark Troll, she is big. Let's see here. My cousin.
Okay.
What about vampires? I know that psychic vampires for sure exist. We all know those in our lives every day. But what do you think about vampires?
We both lived in New Orleans I lived there for close to 20 years, if not over 20 years.
I lived there for 10 years.
Lived in the French Quarter. I don't know. I've never seen or even had a real good first-person account that was relayed to me about them. So again, that doesn't mean that there's not something out there that might be the basis of that legend. I mean, if you look at it, so many different cultures have versions of vampires. A lot of them are really wildly different from one another. So I don't know. There might be a basis to it, but that's not anything we've ever really ran across or even had anybody report to us at this point. So
Yeah. Lived in Mid-City for 10 years. Oh, okay. I lived right near the Bayou St. John for a few years. Yes. Yep. Long ago.
somebody said that, and I'm familiar with him, but we don't have a lot of time to really keep up with a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels. It's not that we're not interested in them, but it's just that time's always a concern for us. And somebody said that Steve Isdall has basically accepted Dogman. And that says a lot if you're familiar with his work. He wasn't even interested in it, but he received so many reports. That's kind of where we were. Again, I was interested in Sasquatch research. She was interested in paranormal. We were both already pretty open to the fact that there were other things out there, but Dogman, it just seemed crazy. I mean, before our first LBL trip, we were even kind of making fun of it online, just that it was just kind of a crazy, almost like sightseeing tour.
Yeah, we were cyberbullying the Dogman.
It just didn't seem. It just
seemed so out of the realm of possibility that we were like, there is no way that there is a Dogman, you know?
And the more fantastic stories about it were kind of the face of the phenomenon. Crazy Reddit stories and government agent kill team. And I'm not saying that stuff's not happening. It's just that the things that you would mostly hear about when you would first think about Dogman didn't really lend itself to being believable. But then we went to LBL, and when I caught that thing on the thermal, man, I mean, it shook me. And
it wasn't even just in one. You didn't just get one picture of it. We got 2 thermal images back to back.
Shows it moving. So
and then it's gone. And then it's just completely gone. And it was standing in like a little ravine. And the next day, and we have this in our first LBL series on our second video, we go back to that area. And Joe actually gets in the ravine. He's about 6'3", and he stands in the ravine where this thing was standing, and it was taller than you.
About my height, or a little bit taller. Yeah. So somebody asked, how do you not have more of an accent being from North Carolina? She sounds like Ellie Mae Clampett like half the time, man.
Half the time. Well, because I'm trying to be professional.
So
well, actually, it helps that I had like a speech therapy, I guess. That helped with that. And I moved around when I got to be about 18. I moved to New Orleans and lived there for a while. And so, but I like to communicate very, very well, unless I get very angry or very drunk. So then Ellie Mae comes out. So.
Slavic legends. Somebody says they love the French Quarter. French Quarter used to be amazing. Not so much anymore. There's a reason why we left, man. So
yep.
Kind of bear with us. We're just going through a lot of these comments right here. Yeah, we're just going through these
comments. Okay, here's one.
Somebody said that Alan Lassiter says, my dad told me about a Bigfoot destroyed a campsite and killed the campers up in North Carolina. It happened back in either the 60s or the 70s. Western North Carolina especially is filled with Sasquatch encounters, and none of them seem to be pleasant at all. You'll occasionally have that kind of one person that just goes, oh, they come into my backyard and pick fruit off the back of my trees. But we've heard a ton of really aggressive stories from there. And as a matter of fact, if you're familiar with, well, I won't give the exact location. There's a small town up in Western North Carolina where there's a store at that is a specialty store. And they do like survival equipment and stuff like that. And if you're curious enough, I'm sure you can track it down. But we were in there getting some supplies, and the lady asked what we're doing. And we're just like, screw it, we're going Bigfoot hunting, man. And she proceeds to tell us about a guy that's in that part of Western North Carolina that was actually running a survival school in the mountains up there, who was a frequent patron of the store, who said that he had to basically stop doing his school because they were getting so aggressive, and that he saw them up there all the time, and that he had seen them up close, and that he couldn't take students up there anymore because they were so aggressive. We've never been able to get in touch with that guy. So, but that he had said that over the last few years they had gotten much more aggressive than what they had been in the past.
Yeah.
So much so that he didn't feel safe up there anymore. Elves, trolls, and other small humanoids. And somebody mentioned earlier about the Hopkinsville goblins. So
Yeah.
I am a huge believer in that there is a race of something that looks man-like, but is very small and lives in the mountains or the caves.
Yeah,
And
I think that a lot of things like elves, trolls, goblins, for some reason I in my opinion, I think there's more of a extraterrestrial alien gray type connection to those kind of things. Like the fairies, like folklore fairies, that's kind of like it has so many similarities to alien grays and UAPs and UFOs. So I think that those are kind of one and the same.
yeah, the whole like the alien gray, the Dover demon, the Hopkinsville goblins, the rakes that they have now, this whole pale crawler thing. There does seem to be a constant reoccurring theme about pale, hairless creatures that are usually associated with like the underground, like caves and all of that. That stuff fascinates me. Getting into, we'd love to go like spelunking sometime in one of these areas that.
Yeah,
And go check out.
we're not experienced cavers at all, and
Yeah,
I'm
that's one thing that
pretty scared of small spaces. But eventually, we're gonna have to go into caves. I think we're gonna have to draft Tyler Strand to teach us how to go into caves eventually. Let's see. That's my girl, aliens. Yes, Ron.
Not today. Saban wants to know, have we ever considered that the likelihood of transpermia being an ongoing occurrence, that cryptids like Dogman make sense in an evolutionary sense? That's possible. I think that if they were the product of transpermia, we would be able to find them and capture or kill them like we can almost every other animal on this planet right now. I think they come from somewhere else, but I think that they're just here for a little while, then they go back to wherever they came from or to somewhere else. But I think they come from somewhere else, stay here, and then go elsewhere. So
let's see. Strange Dominions podcast says, have you guys experimented with using incense on investigations and or noting the direction of where you are having activities? When we are out on investigations, we try to get as much data as possible. And actually, since I did your podcast, we have been making notations about where this activity is coming from. And if we return to an area where we've experienced activity before, it seems like it keeps coming from the same directions. But we haven't gotten enough data at this point in time to where we have found any kind of pattern with the direction in which the activity is coming from.
And that's something that again, that's another double-edged sword. We understand that data for this isn't going to prove anything to anyone, but we look for patterns a lot. So we collect a lot of data when we're out. I mean, we have Kestrel environmental monitoring devices where we try to track the temperature, we track the phases of the moon, we get baseline readings with Geiger counters and EMF detectors, and a lot of that doesn't usually make the videos because it's kind of boring to watch us just walk around and make notes. But hopefully eventually one of these days all this data is going to mean something and we're going to be able to form a picture with it. So
down here, this is Justin Langtang. Down here in Texas, people believe that there are little people that resemble Native Americans, just miniature. The Cherokee up around this way have Cherokee little people. That has been a legend forever. And author Mary Joyce actually wrote a book about this, that they found these caves and graves of tiny little skulls near Western Carolina University in outside of Silva in Cullowhee, North Carolina. And that they found these graves and that the university actually covered it up. And one of the professors actually had a tiny skull on his desk for a long time that was said to be from a Cherokee little person. You can check out her book on that called Little People Are Real. Cherokee Little People Are Real. She's actually going to be on the Wild and Weird radio show that I am a guest host on, or I'm a host on. She's going to be on there next week, I believe. So look out for that. She's a very interesting woman. She also runs skyships over Cashiers. But yeah, there is common stories among several native tribes about little people living amongst them or living on the edge of their world. So
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, out of everything that we have, because I've never seen a little person or a gnome, anything like that while we're out. We did find very small human-like footprints on 2 separate occasions in 2 different spots in Georgia.
yeah, and these are in places where people
yeah.
do not go, and this is during the time of year where you shouldn't have a small child
running around
barefoot on the side of a mountain.
And your kid has obviously never worn shoes before, so
Yeah.
did not have. So I definitely think that there's something there to it, and I don't think that they are extinct or that they no longer exist. I think that they are out. Something like that. I have a feeling it's strictly biological, and it is normal to our reality. It's just that we just haven't found it yet, because whether they have some sort of unique abilities to remain hidden, or maybe it's just the fact, given their size and the terrain that they inhabit, we haven't found them. But I do think that that's there. Darkstar 9513 asks, what's your opinion on reports of giant spiders sizes of 2 feet or more here in the States?
As soon as I hear about that or reports
We're
of that, I'm not going. No, absolutely not. I will not be there. You won't find me.
Those reports, though, and if I remember correctly, 2 of the really good ones are from Louisiana that took place on one of the military bases down there. Some of the soldiers that were stationed there actually saw them, and if I remember correctly, were told to be quiet about them, but there were really compelling stories about it. And yeah, it's just weird. That's just weird. That's one of those things that I guess maybe in small numbers and in really remote areas. I mean, it's an insect. It's not going to leave, if it dies, I mean, that exoskeleton is going to be gone in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a possibility. I'm not going to rule it out. So.
Bullish Bowser says, I'm going to throw it up there. You guys are awesome. Has anyone in the government, state, or federal given you any information? Joe, I'll let you answer that to the most ambiguous possible way. Or not at all. Maybe that's another conversation.
I don't want to come across like that we're like in constant touch with like black site CIA agents or anything like that, but talking to state and local authorities. Yes.
So yes is the answer.
It just yes.
Yes.
So, I don't want to. If I dance around it, I'm going to end up
just saying something.
Yeah, saying something. So yes, they have.
Trying to keep up, you guys.
I kind of just want to come out and just say, hey, here's what happened, but it's too early to do that at this point.
Too early.
Herbert Blevins, Mountain Folk talk about the Fae. I've got a huge background in European folklore and comparative mythology and everything like that, and I'm a big believer in a lot of the phenomena that we experience nowadays. Our ancestors experienced and interpreted it in a different way. And that's where a lot of these stories came from.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the parallels between the abduction phenomenon and changeling abductions and going into fairy hills and never coming back out, or if you do come back out, a lot of time has gone by. I'm a huge believer in that's just another interpretation of the same thing that we're dealing with nowadays.
Yeah.
So.
And I think this leads into this. Shane's Workshop says, do you think all the paranormal, cryptid, and UFO stuff going on could be connected somehow? Absolutely. There's so many instances of people seeing a UAP or a UFO, and then shortly thereafter seeing a Sasquatch or a Dogman. There's a lot of connections between these orbs that are floating through the woods and seeing Bigfoot. There's just so many instances where there's so much crossover. And we don't know if these are all just a part of the same network, or if it just so happens that they're all coming through the same kind of blur and line between dimensions. We just don't know. But it's interesting to posit like all of these theories and all these possibilities and think about all the possibilities. But the best you can do is just listen to all of these folks' encounters and, take notes of the similarities between them.
One of the earlier comments we got was from Benny Long that says there's a place here in Mississippi where I heard Tim Coonbo Baker says he refuses to go. I've also heard Dark Waters strongly advise people to stay out of this place. No, it's not Taylor. Are there any places you won't go into and investigate? I'm hesitant about going back to Panthertown Valley.
Yeah.
Just because of the last occurrence that happened up there. That was probably, out of everything that's happened to us so far, probably the most personally disturbing. And nothing even really happened. We've got a show coming up soon where we talk about the Oz factor, which is usually associated with UAP and UFO sightings, where people just seem like they've momentarily kind of gone into another reality where everything just seems a little off, a little threatening. We had that to the factor of 10 there right before we left. So we'll eventually go back. We've talked about it so much at this point. We've kind of talked ourselves into a corner that we've got to go back, but that's somewhere that I'm not looking forward to. And I'm usually not overly frightened of the phenomena. I mean, you've seen in some of our videos where I'll put Jessi back in the truck and I'll go back in on foot by myself. So I don't think I'm somebody who's jumping at shadows or anything like that, but it's that place is a little disturbing. So
oh, we got so many guys. Jeez. Thank you. We really appreciate you guys tuning in.
Yeah, we're caught a little off guard. We thought there'd be like 10 people here, and this would just be just a shakedown on the live streaming stuff.
Here's one. This one's interesting to me. There's also a huge prison here in LBL, Kentucky called Eddyville. It's literally a castle and also rumored to be haunted. That is the castle on the Cumberland. That is a federal. It's a federal prison, right? But it is. It's a very interesting prison. It's it's almost fully staffed by inmates, but it's like almost completely self-sufficient. It has the death row inmates of Kentucky housed there. And we actually, last time we were in LBL, I was like, Joe, no matter what, we have to get to that overlook to where we can go see the prison. So we went up this crazy road in the LBL, and it's like gravel roads that are just winding, crazy, rough gravel roads. And this is just right after that last hurricane came through in December. And we're traveling up there. I just had to make sure that I got to that overlook because I wanted to go see the castle on the Cumberland because I was so fascinated with that prison because it does look exactly like a castle. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was haunted because it looks creepy, number one. But there's a lot of evil people housed there. So
Will Lane asked if there's any native ties to Dogman in the East, like Skinwalker. He's not saying the name, I'll say it, in the Western U.S. The most interesting thing I've heard recently about that is I heard about the climate here is not as conducive to pictographs staying as pristine as they do out in the Southwest. It's just a harsher climate here as far as that goes, as far as weathering the rock away. But in the Uwharrie that somebody mentioned earlier, there are a couple of stone carvings of dog-headed men that we've heard people talk about recently. So as far as that goes, I'm going to say yes, there are some other stories. It doesn't really we're mostly surrounded by areas at the Cherokee and to a lesser extent the Catawba we're at. And the Cherokee, at least as far as the ones that are further out west, have some dogmen. They've got that, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation, Onglaga Doglala, the long dog stories. You don't see it quite as much in this region. But you do hear other weird stuff through here. Like one of the things that really fascinates me is the hyena stories that we get sometimes. I've been tracking these for
brown. They're like brown hyenas. Brown hyenas are also called strand wolves.
Yeah, I stumbled across a couple of guys talking on an old hunting forum one time where this guy was talking about how he and his brother had killed one of these things and then they burned it because they were afraid that they were going to, again, it was kind of implied that they were out poaching and they didn't want any evidence there at all. And then it was just a floodgate of like 3 or 4 other people talking about them. We'll occasionally get stories of them through here where people talk about, now they're quadrupeds, they're on all fours, but that's the big thing around here. We hear more Sasquatch than that, and then a little bit of Dogman, although Dogman it seems like it's ramping up.
Yeah.
Especially north of us here in North Carolina. So
back to the brown hyena thing. If you get a minute, don't get off of our live stream right now. You stay on us. But when you're done, when we're done, you ought to look up brown hyenas. They're also called strand wolves, but they look like, I mean, if they stood on two legs, they look like what we'd imagine like a dogman to look. They have long fur. They're huge, but they're not quite as big as the dogmen are described. But yeah, it's strand wolves, brown hyenas. But there's a lot of stories about those actually being here in the United States. But they are freaky. They're usually found on Africa's skeleton coast, I believe.
Mhm.
But yeah, they're frightening. But they shouldn't be here. But there's instances of people actually seeing them and shooting them.
Not today just says checks out. I just meant the altering and mutation of DNA via outside sources. Yeah, that's definitely possible. When you were back to talking about transpermia, yeah, I think definitely that's definite possibility for it. So we got a comment earlier. Stephen Taylor actually wanted to know, has your research detected any occult witchcraft activity that may contribute to sightings and encounters? If so, please explain. We just recorded a podcast about that very thing that touches upon that, and the short answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we do have a podcast coming out about that. Our experiences with coming across occult activity in the woods when we're doing the work that we're doing, and we have had more than one encounter with occult activity while we're out doing the research that we do. And you can actually watch what is the video, Hexes and Handprints. It's a video that we have out on our channel, Hexes and Handprints. You can check that out. We find what looks to be like a hex symbol behind our tent, made out of sticks, and there's a pile of mud with a handprint in it, and it is so freaky. And I think we both say something like, "This is like some Blair Witch stuff," you know. But yeah, there's definitely occult activity going on in these woods. Keep an eye out for that podcast to come out when I put it out, probably next week.
Yeah, and we're not the only ones that have discovered that. I mean, we talk about it a bit, and I think by virtue of where we usually operate at, we see it a little bit more. I mean, there's been families that have lived in these mountains since they arrived here from overseas, and they've never left.
Oh, for sure.
To us, it's what we're kind of trying to figure out is it's a chicken and the egg type thing. Is the weird activity in these particular little localities, has it been caused by the occult activity that's going on there, or has the occult activity been attracted to that area because there was already anomalous activity going on there, or did they just kind of occur separately, but yet the occult activity is kind of feeding in and strengthening the other weird stuff that's going on there? So,
yeah.
All right.
Thoughts on the Mandela effect simulation?
True. Happens,
yeah, it definitely happens. It happens. I all the classic examples I'm familiar with, but it seems like it's happening more and more in our daily life. I don't know if that's from them switching on the CERN stuff. I just don't know, the Large Hadron Collider or something. I don't know, but yes, I am seeing a lot of that and a lot of deja vu lately.
So Rob asked once if we've ever seen a cloaked being. When we were in North Carolina one time, we have a research area that we used to go to that's next to the bear sanctuary that's up there, the Pisgah Bear Sanctuary. And it was raining, and I thought I saw something that looked like the stereotypical cloaked predator that people talk about, but I can't be certain because it was raining, and maybe it was just the rain coming off the leaves and just the way the light hit it. However, when we were at LBL last time, and we put it in our second video, but we don't spend a lot of time really dwelling on it because we're still a little unsure about it ourselves. But if you remember when we went up to the area around that big rusted out metal building at night, it's when we heard that like kind of chanting or singing or whatever we heard in like the distance. I scanned around with the thermal imager, and there's going to be a second we put it in there where I saw what looked like the head and shoulders of something peeking around a tree at us. And it shows up black on my thermal. The thing is, I have it set to red hot, which means that a black color is going to be colder than everything else around it. Whatever this was kind of going in back and forth between the trees, like looking at us, or gave the impression of looking at us. and it was colder than the cement block that was there. And this is the middle of wintertime. So, we saw what looked like a human outline, but it was super, super cold and nothing showed up on the naked eye. Because I immediately checked that spot out with a flashlight, and then I'd go back to thermal. It would come back out again. I'd check it with a flashlight, nothing there. So whether that was just a weird, I can't think of how the thermal would pick something up like that. There was no tree of that shape that was there. So, and honestly, I look back at it and I just go, it's almost like we picked up something cloaking there. So, all right. Matt Keene wanted to know if we think about near-death experiences and its connection to being a beacon for the paranormal. I've never had a near-death experience. And meaning that like I almost died or did die and then come back. But I would think that it would definitely be like almost a beacon for some of the more metaphysical type stuff.
Or would it, that you were almost, when you're almost touching the other side, you're there and you've come so very close to crossing over perhaps, and you've been touched by the other side in a way. Maybe you don't become a beacon or a magnet for it, but maybe you're a little more open to it, that you've come so close to the other and another realm that they know that, maybe that these entities know that, and then they can maybe come closer to you than maybe people who have not experienced that. I could totally see that being a possibility.
Magnet Fishing said that we all need the alien predator thermal vision. Man, we've got so much thermal at this point that we've got a pulsar, an AGM, and a FLIR. Yeah, we've found ourselves going less. We've gone away from like traditional night vision and more into thermal imagers and full spectrum cameras. It seems like we've picked up more on full spectrum cameras than we have with regular night vision. Full spectrum goes ultraviolet and infrared as opposed to just infrared and then just thermals. But yeah, thermal is pretty much the way we're going at this point.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if we eventually release a video that's just shot in thermal with audio over it.
Oh, so, wow. That would be fun. Yeah. That would be great. Yeah, I'd actually enjoy doing that. I'm sure you guys would like to see how our different thermals behave and perform. I think I want to do a little video where I compare our 3 thermals that we have right now, because they're so very different and they're all at 3 very different price points. But surprisingly enough, like the mid-tier one, I think is the best one we have.
The best one we have. And it's weird because there's so many people that are supposedly out doing this stuff, but you don't really see any utilization of thermal imaging. And we know it works, at least for the Dogman or whatever that was that we caught on thermal at the LBL. You would think that as they get more affordable, you'd start to see more people using them. I mean, they're still pricey. I mean, I think we got a FLIR that was probably the least expensive. That was under $1,000. The other 2 are pretty pricey, but it's still not like it was 20 years ago when they're, $10,000, $15,000. I mean, they're more affordable. So hopefully over the next few years, you'll see more people using them and hopefully getting evidence on them.
Oh yeah. What's up, Small Town Monsters?
36-degree parallel, Stephen Taylor. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. And that is weird, man. It's if you look at it, there's it seems like it's outside the realm of just happenstance that so much weirdness goes on through there. So, especially as it goes through Kentucky, man. I mean, Kentucky has really we were talking about this the other day, actually with Barton Nunley, that, Skinwalker Ranch is getting so much like attention right now. And I'm going, man, Kentucky's like a statewide Skinwalker Ranch when you look at all the stuff that's through there. There's some stuff that we're mapping in Kentucky to try to look for some patterns, and my map's getting full just because so much weird stuff happens, from like strange animal attacks, just the missing persons.
Yeah, the disappearances are really, really shocking. The amount of disappearances and just the circumstances on some of these disappearances are, a lot of them are very similar. And I'm finding a pattern connecting the disappearances in Kentucky and in this certain area. There's also a very, very, very close similarity to another area where we are currently investigating. We've been investigating for a couple of years now, of how these remains are found, the nature of people going missing. We're finding a lot of congruencies here between those two cases.
If you all think all the paranormal, cryptid, UFO stuff could be connected somehow, that's from Shane's workshop. Yeah.
I already answered that.
Oh, you did? I'm
I
sorry.
did.
So I was phasing out. So,
No, go ahead.
opinion on the Brown Mountain lights? I don't know. We haven't. It's weird. It's in our backyard. We've never gone there to investigate it. You know, like you're never a tourist in your own hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've never gone, but we're planning on it because there's other reports of weird stuff that goes on there other than the Brown Mountain lights. So
I posited today the Brown Mountain lights are just feral people with torches. That was my theory today. What my theory tomorrow will be, nobody knows.
Interdimensional theory when it comes to these cryptids.
Yes, I think that there's an interdimensional possibility there. You just have, I mean, you have stories of interdimension, like of portals and gateways to other dimensions through the ages. I like to always bring up the Hopi at Mesa Verde with the Sipapu. That was the origin of the people. They came through the Sipapu, which is a portal, and they're represented in their home structures and their temple structures. There is that little portal representation, and so that their people came through a portal into the world or the reality that we know now. And that's not the only story about that. There's that, and then there's the possibility that these creatures, cryptids, ghosts, anything like that, that they could be coming from another dimension, from aliens even, coming from another dimension, and that they kind of cross over at will, perhaps, or it's just when the dimensions are the veil is thinned a little bit and they come through.
It's got to be. Let me address that before we go back to something else, but there would have to be some sort of intelligent control, because you don't see these things appearing in the middle of Times Square.
That's true.
On like a busy Friday afternoon. So there's something there that, and if you go back to John Keel, even when he would catalog UFO sightings, he would go that they mostly seem to occur in lessly populated rural areas in the middle of the night, almost like they were occurring, but they were consciously deciding when and where to occur at to minimize the amount of people that could see them. I think that definitely goes on. As far as interdimensional stuff goes, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have given you all of the regular like Bigfoot hunters stuff. There was a land bridge and these things came over and Gigantopithecus and da. And because we've always tried to investigate kind of incredible stuff in a credible manner, if that makes sense. And I think you can see that with all the equipment that we use, where we're trying to actually just try to catalog data, catalog environmental stuff, just try to get, as scientific as you can be about something that might not follow the rules of science. But nowadays, I mean, and it's something that I still struggle with, just because it goes against what I used to think was just how the world worked. But nowadays, yeah, I absolutely think that if it's not interdimensional, it's what they would call an ultra terrestrial, where it's just been here and it coexists with us on Earth, but maybe we just can't see it all the time. It's weird because I was never a UFO person. And as this UAP stuff has started to come out and the interdimensional hypothesis guys have kind of taken center stage, that pretty much tells you where the people that are in the know, as much as you can be in the know, what they kind of think at this point. And when you look at the fact that they're able to catalog and observe some of these, whatever these are, behaving in a manner that's inconsistent with our own physical world, it's starting to look like these, like I said, these things come from quote unquote somewhere else. So yeah, I definitely think there's an interdimensional thing. Tiffany Keeling wants to know, what kind of safety do you have in case you come face to face with a dogman? We actually got a question earlier from someone that kind of goes hand in hand with that. We'll kill two birds with one stone. Dead End Yard Haunt wanted to know about the handguns we carry. We carry like Glock 10 millimeters. Mm-hmm. We carry them with hard cast buffalo bore ammunition, which is what a lot of grizzly guides carry. It's extremely high powered very dense rounds. So we carry those. After the first LBL trip, we got a Mossberg Shockwave 12 gauge that we usually carry in the pack. We carry like road flares in our pack. We carry usually like bear spray or mace with us and everything. But like I said, I mean, all that might not be enough if we come face to face. But I mean,
like we do say, we are always armed. I think that if you believe these things are real and out there, that if you think there is when speaking of Sasquatch, a 9-foot tall ape-like humanoid out there in the woods that could be upwards of 900 pounds, on the upper end, you want to be armed when you're around something like that. Or if you think that there's an upright canid out there that has, as far as we know, taken people and attacked people that we know, in terms of like Martin Groves. If you actually believe those things are out there, you're going to go out there armed every time. And we do. Yeah.
And to that, I mean, especially with, well, I can't say especially with Dogman, because you see a lot of this with like the Sasquatch world as well, where all these stories of I shot it 10 times and it didn't do anything. You might very well have, and you might even have hit it at this point. But, some of the stories that are coming out now, some of the most credible stories that are coming out are Martin Groves and then Joe from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And that.
Oh, no, he's from Michigan.
Michigan, I'm sorry. Yeah, from Michigan. That's why I paused for a second. I didn't think I had the state right. But Martin and his hunting partner fired at these things. And then Joe shot one and killed one.
Yeah.
That he thinks. So I'm starting to think that maybe these things are just as vulnerable to mass and velocity as anything else on the planet if you have the right tools to do it.
What do we always say? If it bleeds, you can kill it.
Yeah, bleeds, you can kill it. So, all right.
We're trying to catch up with all these questions, guys. Thank you guys again for joining us on this live stream. If you get a couple of seconds, go ahead and hit that like button. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you guys joining us tonight. I know that everybody had a long weekend with it being Labor Day. And it has been pouring rain here, so. Silver Bullet. Yeah, I love that.
What's that?
You just mentioned, you got me remembering Silver Bullet.
Would you consider investigating mountain giants? We mostly focus on Southern Appalachia, and you don't really get the reports of super huge creatures like you do out like in the Pacific Northwest or up in Canada at this point. Now that's not to say that we won't eventually do that one day, but you don't really seem to get just those. And by giants, you mean those like 12, 14 foot tall creatures. We don't really have like a parallel for that. There's a couple Cherokee giant stories around here that are in the folklore, but you don't really get any modern day reports of anything like that large through here. So once we venture out of this particular region, probably so. Is that Panther Town near Cashiers, North Carolina?
Panther Town, yeah, it is. Yep, the one and the same, Panther Town. I know that they're doing a lot of development around there. Cashiers is kind of a very swanky resort town. So there's been a lot of development that way. So a lot more people moving into our region is causing it to be a little less wild than it used to be. But the area in which we had our really, really crazy experience was at the other end of Panther Town from Cashiers. So not right by Cashiers. Although Cashiers is weird. Like I mentioned before, Mary Joyce talks about the sky ships over Cashiers. And in that area too of Western North Carolina, you also have the possibility of the deep underground military bases. You have the Cherokee Little People. There's lots of crazy stuff.
It's weird because, like I said, I did Bigfoot research through like Georgia, Louisiana. I know Louisiana up near the Texas border is supposed to be like, they call it like Monster Central or something, but I never had any weird experiences down there at all. But through this region, it's weird, and I think you're starting to see more of it gets talked about as the population here has increased, because before people didn't talk about it, not because they were trying to like keep some secret, but it just wasn't. It's almost like everybody took it for granted through here. So I think people are starting to realize what, from like Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, on down through, the upper part of South Carolina, this whole like mountainous area, there's just a ton of weird stuff that goes on.
Absolutely.
I just don't think this was ever really a tourist destination. And I don't think really a lot of people were, I mean, there was some tourism here, but people weren't coming as much as they did maybe in other regions. It just wasn't talked about that much. So Bullish Bowser, you guys have a PO box. Yeah, man. Check our website, hellbentholler.com. We have the PO box listed on there, don't we?
Yeah. And I'll actually give you the PO box right here on the live stream, but it is PO Box 777, Pelzer, South Carolina. It's Pelzer, South Carolina 29669. We have the best numbers in our PO box address. We have, but yes,
we're adjacent to the beast. So yeah,
we are 777. We are adjacent to the beast. 777 is very lucky, so that's why we have that.
Spooktator Bob says he spent 7 years as a correctional officer. Trust me, prisons are chock full of unusual things.
Yeah,
I personally investigated several unexplained incidents. It seems like, I'm not going to rehash every ghost show you've ever seen, but that just those buildings act like batteries for all the misery that goes on. But to your thing about being a correctional officer, it seems like people in law enforcement, first responders, and all that. What did your friend Chuck tell you? Every one of them's got a story. It's just getting them to tell it.
Yeah, so, it's like every EMT, police officer, corrections officer,
everything. Everybody has a story.
Everybody has a spooky story. Chuck runs a radio show around here, and he's a ex Greenville County sheriff's deputy. So he's got a lot of crazy stories of weird goings on, and he's always telling me, yeah, everybody who's a first responder, they all got a weird story, and anybody who's ever worked that night shift has listened to Coast AM hours and hours and hours. So for sure.
Alan Lassiter wanted to know if we'd ever talked to the Cherokee up there, and are they open to talking about Bigfoot, as it's still taboo? It's a mixed bag. Some of the tribe members will talk about it, some won't. Some thinks here's the thing that we always get about like the Native American Association with like a lot of this phenomena, is that people tend to kind of fetishize it. They either just, you can't talk about that because that's their folklore and it's disrespectful, or you just speak almost for them. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, if you get anybody that's in that community, they're just people like us. I mean, they're going to have the same range of, not all of them believe in it. I met one guy whose father, with the Catawba tribe, was an elder. His father didn't believe in any of this stuff. He does, however.
Yeah.
It's definitely in and around that area of the Cherokee Reservation. There's still a ton of reports up through there.
And the Native histories, that's what we have for this area. That's what we have for this area before the Europeans came, is we have the Native histories, and that's the resource we have. That's the resource we're going to go with.
And how that those events and the phenomena that they were seeing seemed to continue after this area was settled by Europeans at this point.
Oh yeah,
so,
for sure.
And like I said, a lot of people want to dismiss the Native American folklore. Again, these were people who, just by virtue of the time period and the lack of technology, they were far more in touch with like natural stuff. They're not mistaking a bear. They see bears all the time.
I think we said this in a podcast that we did recently, that, I think that somebody who has lived on this land forever, and their ancestors lived on this land, and they're very familiar with their environment, I think they know the difference between what they're describing as a Sasquatch and a bear.
It's like you seeing a car going down the road, and you go, oh no, I just saw this giant metal body. You saw a car. You know what a car looks like. These people knew what the natural wildlife around them looked like, how it behaved, and they knew that when they were seeing something that didn't fit in with that natural ecology. So
Mark Troll. I know Mark Troll. Ever experienced anything around the Cataloochee area? We went to the Cataloochee area a couple of times. There's a lot of old homes there and old homesteads. If you get a chance to go to the Cataloochee area, there's a couple of old cemeteries. There's the road that goes down and it's got the old homes and everything on it. Now to the right across the field, up straight a hill, there are some of the creepiest looking cemeteries you'll ever see in your life. But when you get to the end of that road and you park over there, you hike down that trail there. We experienced some really crazy activities through there. We had rock throwing happening at us, going down that trail. And then the John Woody house is down that trail. But we went down there. We had grunts. We had all kinds of weird stuff. Now that is bear country. So there is a possibility as that, but I don't really know of a lot of bears that are throwing rocks at people walking down trails. So, but I think that because of the remote nature of that area, that would be a prime spot for something to kind of settle in. And then you've got the elk there. So it's,
Not Today Saban says that if we haven't already checked out the stuff coming out of the To the Stars Academy, I'm like fascinated with that stuff, man, because come on, man, it's Tom DeLonge from Blink-182. Who took it? Nobody took him seriously to begin with. And just when he's talking about, oh, I'm meeting with the general and I'm meeting with these high-level politicians, everybody just thought he was crazy. And then, the Clinton email leak comes out and they're talking about people meeting with Tom DeLonge, and it turns out that what he was saying was true. And if you look at some of his earlier interviews, I think before he got out of, hey, I'm a rock star giving an interview and I'm just going to talk about whatever, to I'm an ambassador of a group that's trying to look into this phenomenon, he let drop some really crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He really let some wild stuff drop that he mentioned and then just never mentioned again.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole To the Stars Academy thing there's a reason why it's gotten the support that it has from like the powers that be. And I think it's because that's part of the ongoing effort to normalize everything, to try to normalize what's going on as much as they can, because they know they can't control it. They can't explain it, but they can't hide it anymore either. So I think they're trying to get ahead of it at this point, and I think that's one of the vehicles that they're using. All right.
Clan SCC says, I'm not religious, but I wonder if that analogy, the gates of hell and earth are getting closer, has something in relation to the emergence of Dogman. Sounds like a hound of hell in a way, doesn't it? It just kind of sounds that way. It's
again, this is coming from somebody who just a few years ago just would have told you that all the Dogman stuff was either flat out made up or it was misidentification of maybe a Sasquatch sighting. And now we're on the side of going, this has probably been going on a lot more frequently than what anybody thought of. And some of those Sasquatch sightings were probably misidentified Dogman sightings.
Yeah.
There just wasn't a channel to report that. And if you came out going, hey, I saw this big hairy thing lunged at me out of the tree line, it was 7 feet tall, it wasn't a man, well, the people are going to automatically assume it's a Sasquatch, and that's how that report's going to be recorded. But it's something we talk about quite a bit. It's for us at least, this whole Dogman thing started with a report that a fellow researcher who really wasn't into Dogman just gave it to us because we were closer to the area than what he was. It happened in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting story, and it was a member of his family who had the experience. So he obviously thought the witness was credible. And then that just seemed like it opened up the floodgates. And then the next thing you know, we're just, as our channel got a little bit of exposure, we're getting constant people contacting us about these upright wolves trying to get into their homes, and
Yeah.
it killed my dog and it cut my horse up. And it just starts in a little spot in North Carolina, and then it goes south and east. And when we started getting all those, and then the LBL massacre kind of got back into the popular
just
discussion,
really started the ball rolling.
and we just went, hey, let's go check it out. So what do you think about the black-eyed kids, or if they're real? I've never had anybody report, and we're not like a household name or anything like that, but we get a few reports a day at this point, sometimes as many as like 10, 15, 20. I've never had anybody go, hey, listen, I had an encounter with a black-eyed kid.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not saying that, that's a very small sample size from what we've been exposed to, but I don't know, because you have to also be aware of the fact that a lot of this supernatural and cryptid stuff, it's popular now. And again, I've said it 3 times now, it's a double-edged sword. A, it makes people, more likely and open to speak about things that actually happen to them. But B, you get a lot of people that need that creepypasta, kind of hit. So I don't know. I mean, have you ever had anything happen with black-eyed kids? I'd love to hear about it.
I'd love to hear about it
I've
too.
never heard anybody with like a good first person or a really good second person account.
Just a real children of the corn situation. Let's see, moving on down here. Kaiju Ninja 1985 says, have you heard any chatter? And if so, does it sound like the Sierra sounds? We have heard things that sound like the samurai chatter before. And I think one of our first instances of us hearing that when we were actually out in the woods filming was our second video. Yeah, we were up in the what is that called? It's near Caesar's Head, South Carolina.
Ravencliff? No.
It's near Ravencliff, yeah, but it's in that area. We were in an area that we were pretty far out there. That's where we found like small footprints, like way up inside like a small like cave overhanging thing. But we actually heard across the river and then into the woods beyond us, we heard what sounded like
samurais, like the samurai chatter, but it was higher pitched.
Yeah.
And that's close to where we found those small footprints at.
Yep.
Now we've also heard, I don't know how you would want to describe it, like faux speech or whatever. We've heard it sounded like 2 people talking, but it didn't sound.
What? There was that one time.
It didn't have that cadence like you would expect an Oriental language to have. It sounded like 2 people were just speaking conversationally to each other, but they were speaking gibberish. There wasn't any sort of like odd sounding consonant or vowel sounds. It just sounded like people were speaking English, but they were speaking it in a nonsensical manner. Like the words didn't, and you just couldn't quite. You couldn't quite follow it. So nothing in itself sounded strange. It just didn't make any sense. Like almost like somebody was babbling. So
there was one time where we were out and we heard what sounded like somebody talking, but it was like somebody who might have been deaf, talking. It has that affect to it because they can't hear. And it sounded like that. I remember that happening. That might have been in North Georgia.
Somebody asked, do we believe there are different types of Dogman? I don't know. I mean, the physical descriptions that you get everything from a hairy human body with a dog head all the way up to what would normally look like a regular wolf or dog, but it's just standing on 2 legs. I don't think we know enough to, I guess you could kind of group them in by physical characteristics. I definitely think that people are seeing different somethings. Are they all Dogmen? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Again, I go back to that thing in LBL that I saw with my own 2 eyes, man, like 30 feet away or so. That did not look canine. It didn't have the ears that we had seen on thermal. It didn't look like it had a muzzle. It didn't look human. I don't know what it looked like. So yeah, I think there's different types. I just don't think maybe we could classify. Mm-hmm. I think that if you came up and said, hey, here's the 7 different types, I think with a little bit of hunting, I could find you an 8th, a 9th, and a 10th just very easily. So yeah. Do we ever get to Spartanburg or Greenville? We are in the Greenville area.
We're near Greenville. Yes, we are near Greenville. So we've had a couple of people ask us through the course of this if we're going out west to do any kind of work in the Sierras or the Superstition Mountain Range or Skinwalker Ranch area, the Uinta Basin. And the answer to that is not right now. We are pretty busy with the Appalachian area. We are just super busy here. It is such a active area and an active region that we're in way over our heads right now with what we're doing in this region, like from Kentucky to Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and North Georgia. We have not made it that way to out west yet, and I don't know if we're going to make it out there for a while. So
somebody asked if we're planning on attending any conferences like Salt Fort Bigfoot. We don't really do a lot of conferences. We went to the Dogman conference just because we thought that might be a once in a lifetime type thing. I
was going to say, you're way back there.
Yeah, I'm way back. Jessi's going to be doing a presentation at Wild and Weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a time thing for us. We both work full time to fund this. It's like this is our full time job, and then we have full time, part time paying jobs to pay for all this. And then we're out. We like to be out like almost weekly. Matter of fact, if the weather hadn't been so terrible here this weekend, we probably wouldn't be live streaming right now. So first and foremost, I mean, we're more interested in going out and exploring the phenomenon than we are talking about it. We're just kind of doing this to kind of supplement it and, give people the ability to answer questions.
A lot of fun. Well, another thing too, I wanted to remind you all and let you guys know that I am speaking at Wild and Weird Con at Chief Logan State Park in Logan, West Virginia. That'll be coming up October 14th and 15th. And I'm actually doing a night hike that Friday. It's the 14th. I'm doing a night hike before, and I'm going to have all of my equipment with me. And I'm going to show you guys how I use the equipment. And you can actually use the equipment out on the trail with me. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a discussion about everything beforehand. Then we're going to go out into the woods in the state park, and we're all going to hike together and use the equipment. We're going to show you how it works and everything like that. And then we're going to have like a campsite dinner. And Joe Purdue is going to be cooking, not this Joe, but the other Joe from Wild and Weird, West Virginia. He'll be cooking. And then I'll be speaking at the conference the next day. And it's going to be a blast. The Chief Logan State Park Hotel is like it's like a little mini Stanley hotel nestled in the West Virginia mountains. So it is going to be a blast. So if you guys want to come and attend that would be awesome. You can go to wildandweirdwv.com and get tickets and sign up for that Friday night hike with me. So anyway, back to our regular scheduled program. I've shilled enough.
Actually, our good friend Barton Emily had reached out to me. There was a question in the chat that we missed about Dogman and Bigfoot. Do they work together, or are they opposing factions? And that's something that we've actually been talking about a lot lately.
That's kind of a new concept,
because so much had dominated the discussion that they were. Take LBL, for example. You'd have Dogman in the north, Sasquatch in the south, and in the middle part, they fought. They didn't get along. They tried to maintain separate domains. Separate domains. Well, then you've got Barton's own story with what went on there, where it seemed like there were multiple creatures, like inhumanoids, as he likes to call them, working together. And then Martin Grove's story was finally made public, where it's pretty much evident that the Sasquatch and the Dogman were working hand in hand. What the individual roles were is up for debate a little bit, but it's obviously they were not in conflict with one another. So I think that a lot of the stories about the two of them fighting or anything like that, I think that there might be some truth to it. My gut response is that it's maybe just kind of romanticized, maybe just people kind of, again, that creepypasta element where people make stuff up. I think that the more we look into this, that we realize that all of this stuff kind of works hand in hand together.
Yes, it does.
All of it may have the same source. You even get to the point where these individual cryptids and phenomena might just be different aspects of the same thing. Yeah. I don't know.
So this is so on the nose for what we're doing. We know we're doing something. We're in the right frame of mind when these things happen. Have you guys been hit with infrasound? If so, how do you feel? This is from Rob S. So I know we keep talking about these podcasts that we recorded this weekend, but we just did a podcast that we recorded that I'm actually releasing like Tuesday or Wednesday. That is, we go into infrasound. We talk about infrasound and really go into the nuts and bolts of infrasound and possible use with cryptids or not use with cryptids.
We're going to warn you ahead of time. My part is I'm an infrasound nerd. My gut response is that people experience strange physical after effects or strange physical effects while the event was going on with whatever cryptid or even a UFO that they had, and that somebody kind of stumbled upon what they thought infrasound could do and kind of latched onto that because that was the closest natural world equivalent to the experience that they had. There's a lot of debate on that in my mind. You hear so much stuff. if there's a few topics in the world that I think I'm really conversant on, this happens to be one of them. I've done a lot of research on it over the past few years. And the stuff that you hear out there bandied about infrasound, it doesn't behave in the manner scientifically we know what infrasound is. It's a low sound frequency below 20 hertz. It's below human level of hearing. A lot of the stuff that you hear bandied about, like the brown note, that
and we get into all this stuff.
We get into all that, but I think that there's something going on there causing people to have physical after effects, nausea, confusion, unconsciousness. I just don't think it's infrasound. I think it's something else that's going on that we maybe don't understand what it is.
So Drew Muse says, are there substantial reports of dogmen here in Michigan in recent years? We just met a gentleman at the Dogman conference in Paris, Tennessee, that killed one in Michigan.
Shot one. So if you guys have not heard Joe's story, he was on Paranormal Roundtable. He was on Bettina Moss's podcast. We had an opportunity to meet him. We met him. We didn't even know his story at the time. But he was a truck driver who shot and killed one night with a .45 long Colt pistol. And he's got a very just matter of fact account to him. Again, like Martin Groves, you can't listen to him and you don't get any feeling that he's being duplicitous or exaggerating. It's just somebody telling you. It's a normal person who had an abnormal day.
Yeah.
Telling you exactly what happened for it. So do you warm up when you go out in the field? Yeah, we talked about that earlier. We arm up, and so.
I thought you said warm up. I was like, yeah, we do some stretches.
Okay. All right.
Wild and Weird, West Virginia. Where can I buy tickets online? I hope you can buy them on the wildandweirdwv.com website, Strange Dominions. You better be able to. If not, I have to pick a bone with a couple of dudes.
Cowboy Five Rings asked, when you found those bones down at that hole at the LBL, does that rank among the creepiest things you've experienced?
Oh, that was weird. Did you see our faces? I mean, that was weird.
The whole thing was just, it was so
that
weird.
Was just so weird.
So weird.
Right?
We went into that area because we had been contacted by some people who live locally there, who told us about some sightings that they had in two different spots there that were fairly close by. The first spot we went to, nothing at all. And then we were on our way to the second spot, and we ended up what we're calling Station 16. And we've been digging. We've learned some more of the history about it. We'll eventually get into the history of that area. But some of those buildings there are old leftover buildings from the TVA takeover of that area. Some of them are more recent. And so we get there and we go down, and the first thing that caught our eye was the fact that this thing had a barbed wire fence around it. And it wasn't a large barbed wire fence, but you can walk up to like heavy machinery in there that's just not behind fences. You know what I'm saying?
There's also equipment there where the fence could be electrified.
Yes.
The barbed wire up top, that there was electric connections to it.
Yeah, there were leads to it
that could be electrified. So it was electrified barbed wire around an environmental monitoring station.
And we haven't seen barbed wire anywhere there. And then we find those first few bones. But I mean, we found other bone piles in the LBL that seemed strange. But anyway, when we followed that, when I say a trail of bones, it was a trail of bones, man. I mean, it's almost like I don't know. It was weird. And then, but when we got into that building with the door shut, and people have gone, oh, maybe the wind blew that door shut. Maybe it was open. Possible. That door was really scraped on the bottom really, really badly. I don't think the wind could have pushed it shut, but you never know. And let's just say that coyotes are in that area, and they had a deer carcass, and they scattered the bones about. Well, the coyotes didn't get down in that tunnel. If they did, there'd be coyote bones down there too, because they're not getting back out.
Yeah, right.
And then what's even weirder is we live in an area that's really heavy with wildlife that eats bones for calcium. I mean,
squirrels.
The squirrels are crazy through here. Do you know what I'm saying? And we see deer carcasses and how long it takes for those deer carcasses to disappear.
I've got deer bones in my yard
that are still there from years ago, that are gnawed down, but you can still see it. But when we went back, and we've already talked about this publicly.
Mm,
All the bones are gone.
yeah, so that's one of the big things in our upcoming LBL episode is like the bones are gone. So
It's like the whole area was just swept clear. There's
yeah.
no way that could have happened in the few months since we were there last time.
Now
So,
I am a
you know,
magpie. Whenever we had that incident where we found those bones, I did bring some bones home. So I do have some of the bones from that find. So in my bone collection. So I do have the bones that some of the bones that we found, but I only took what 2 bones.
which is good for you. Yeah,
It's
which
good
is
for me.
you.
I only took 2 bones. See, look at me. It's called growth, friends. That's called growth. I only took 2 bones from the piles. But yeah, it was really weird to find those bones and to find such a variety of
Mhm.
bones because it was different animals too. And some of them were super thick. I think was it Barton that said that some of them looked bovine.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a bison enclosure there at the LBL,
Mm-hmm.
but it's nowhere near this. We're talking, I don't even know how many miles it would be from there.
And all the bison are again in enclosures. All the bison are not roaming the
Unless
woods.
something got one of those bison out and took it there to eat it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but Matt Keenan wants to know, is there any piece of equipment that you want to bring out to the field that you don't currently have? Yeah, we're actually getting something built for us right now that we've been waiting on for a long time. That
If you guys are interested in infrasound, something cool is coming.
yeah, so we've got something that's in the works right now that it's not going to be earth shattering, and that it's not going to be as dramatic as like a thermal imager or like, you know, thermal night vision fusion or anything like that. But for what we're looking into, we're going to try to test for some stuff that people seem to take as fact. People seem to take it as just a given that nobody's really ever tested before.
Yeah.
As far as infrasound goes. So, Alan Laster wants to know if we think that there are more and more sightings of Dogman are the cause of new phones with cameras on them, and why does it seem that Dogman sightings have exploded? We kind of touched upon that earlier. I don't know whether it's because, to me, it seems like the activity is increasing.
Yeah,
I know that in a
I
certain.
keep saying that it seems like things are ramping up all around the world of high strangeness. It seems like things are ramping up. Things are getting more and more intense, and I don't know if it's like the conscious, the unconscious collective or whatever is just ramping up. But everything seems to be increasing, and we're really seeing a big increase in Dogman activity.
And some of that is going to go hand in hand with popularity. I mean, you've got to be honest with yourself when you're looking into this stuff. People will lie about almost anything. You know what I'm saying? For sometimes what you think when you go, well, who would lie about that? Somebody out there would. You know what I'm saying? But at the same token, those lies usually become pretty readily apparent. And you're having these people come forward now that are just, again, I go back to Martin Groves, and I know that it's almost like every cryptid channel right now just seems like the Martin Groves channel. But again, this is a guy whose sworn testimony could get your butt thrown in jail. Okay. And he's not like a lot of these people that you'll see that have these amazing credentials that you can't verify. And they're very vague about their background. Well, I was involved in this, but I can't talk about it. Martin Groves will stand there and tell you what county he worked in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not somebody who's trying to hide anything. So I think that's the good thing about it becoming more open, is that those witnesses are starting to come forward that maybe wouldn't have come forward.
Oh,
before,
for sure.
So.
Otherworld Strange Story says, if things pick up for you, will you ever use a drone with night vision or thermal? Yes, we would love to do that. We would love to do that. We have got to work out the kinks of flying a drone. We lost our first and only drone that we've ever had to a tree in North Georgia. It got caught up in the wind, and it is in the top of a tree on top of a mountain in North Georgia right now. So RIP to Droney 1. It's gone. So, but now there's better drones out there with a collision avoidance. So there might not be another drone accident. But that is something we'll eventually add to our kit, because the way we are, I mean, look at all the equipment we have right now, and we're just going to keep adding more to it because we just love being as tech heavy as we are. We love having the equipment. We love using the equipment, gathering as much data as possible. And we have all of this technology at our fingertips. So eventually, yes, we will be getting that kind of tech in our arsenal, I believe. Right? Yeah.
Ryan Simmons, 10 millimeters, some nice stuff. Can't ever find ammo. Jesse's involved in the weekly hunt for 10 millimeter ammo as we drive past anywhere that has it to try to pick up. We usually get buffalo bore whenever they have it in stock and try to keep.
Try a Sportsman's Warehouse.
Yeah.
They'll have it sometimes.
Dun, dun, dun. Going through for more questions. So
I know.
I'm way behind, I think. So,
You are way behind. I know Strange Dominions is coming to Wild and Weird Con. Awesome. That's going to be a great time. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get there kind of early so we can kind of set up. We got our buddy Lenny coming from Maryland. He's going to be there. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of great vendors who are going to be there as well. So you can buy some really amazing original art.
Magnet Fishing wants to know what wristwatches we're wearing. We're actually wearing Garmin's.
Instincts?
Yeah, that have like the GPS and the hiking option.
We have matching watches.
But when we went, you'll hear us talk about Panther Town. We had some entry-level GPS units.
At the time, yeah.
At the time, that just went haywire. Both of them just independently went haywire with different issues. So since then, we're really heavy on GPS stuff. So we'll generally have a paper map of the area. Carry compasses. We have a Garmin 64ST. We carry an InReach Mini that also acts as a GPS, and then we both run our watches as well. So that way, we try to have redundancy in all of that, just in case we start having weird equipment issues.
Somebody asked, let's see, Bullish Bowser says, what are your thoughts on the call blaster used by the Expedition Bigfoot crew? My thoughts on that, when they try to blast out like an injured rabbit sound or something like that, or maybe that's something that may draw in an animal predator, but I don't think that Bigfoot is a dumb ape running through the woods. So we're approaching this from that angle. I think the Expedition Bigfoot crew approaches this from that angle, that they think it's a monkey or an ape, and that they can kind of outsmart it with recordings of animals or recordings of alleged Bigfoot. So I just don't think that that's going to work, because you're going to know if these things are as intelligent as we've seen them to be. Are you not going to notice like somebody recording if say a recording of Joe out in the woods yelling, big slices of cheese, he's yelling that in the woods, but then you take it over to somebody across the country and then you blast it really loud. Some dude out in the woods is just going to hear Joe's voice yelling big slices of cheese, and he's going to be like, I'm not going to yell back at this weird dude screaming big slices of cheese, right?
Sure. So
is my concept too weird?
Yeah, I think that maybe if you get down to it, that it's not completely lifelike. I mean, it's pretty close, but I'm sure that, again, it's people kind of cherry pick the ability of these things as it suits them. It's obvious they seem to have senses that are superior to ours. I would think that they would be able to maybe discern the difference between it. But again, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And maybe if we get out there and try it for ourselves, our opinions will change on it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is that we've never really done we don't bang on trees with sticks, and we don't really do a lot of like howling ourselves or anything, but maybe the call
I just don't think that you're going to trick these creatures. I just don't think that you're going to trick them with this stuff. I think that's why we take the approach of go out there and observe and be a part of try to be a part of the environment, and just be a part of the environment, observe and report back. That's what we do. We don't try to pretend like we're Sasquatch by hooping and hollering. We don't try to pretend like we're trying to communicate by knocking on trees, because we don't know what these methods of communication are doing. So we're just going to go out there, observe and report as much as we can.
Spooktator Bob had asked, do you think these cryptids have a deeper focus on women and children? Several sources seem to think so. Yeah, absolutely.
There's stories, there's native stories of them coming in and stealing women and children.
Not to mention that I go out in the woods with a woman, and we've talked about this before. I can go into an area where we experience activity more often than not by myself. Nothing will happen. And if I take her out there, my chances of experiencing something are exponentially greater.
Yeah.
So I absolutely believe it. And I think too that you always hear about these things being drawn to children, especially nowadays. There was a case in Oklahoma within about the past 2 years where a guy was experiencing these things coming in around his kids, and his daughter had just hit puberty, and he was posting a lot of stuff. He didn't know what they were at first because they were really skinny. And he kept saying that they moved like crackheads. That they weren't moving, and they didn't look like what he would expect a Sasquatch to look like, but they didn't look human. But they were just focused on his kids. And I was part of an effort to kind of give him some advice as to what to do. And you try all the old mainstays, put like night vision cameras out, not to capture it, but to kind of push it back. It didn't work. I mean, he ringed his house and like cameras. I mean, people were donating game cams, and they set up Arlos all over the place to try to like blanket it. And he was still having stuff outside his daughter's window. He ended up moving, took his kids out of school and moved them. And then he stayed up there and sold the house and then got out. So there's definitely, and you have to go back to why are they just these forest friendly giants that want to make friends with the kids? No, man, they're looking at it because I think these things predate upon their opportunistic predators, and it's an easy meal if it can.
Women and children are weaker.
Yeah, so. I am like way behind on this, so
I know
you guys. You have to bear with us. We were expecting like maybe 5 people.
Yeah,
and
there's definitely more than 5 people.
Yeah, there's definitely more than 5 people.
We do appreciate you guys joining us tonight. It is a rainy Monday over it this way, so we do appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and all of these cool questions and having this really cool conversation with everybody, and everybody sitting through my big slice of cheese analogy.
Kaiju Ninja in 1985. Do you think you have a better chance of getting Dogman on camera, even game camera? Do you think they have the same mindset as Sasquatch will evade technology? I don't know, man. Again, here's where we're at on that subject. She and I both discussed this in the past. Biologically speaking, no warm-blooded animal should be able to see infrared light because their own body heat would kind of interfere with it. Mm-hmm. So right then and there, you take out the chance of it being a natural, undiscovered animal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That just fits into the natural world, but we just haven't discovered it yet. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now that when I caught that thing on thermal at the LBL, we didn't have lights on. We were going up a path. We were pretty close to the massacre site.
Yes, we were very close to it.
And we heard a disturbance in the woods, and the woods had been quiet. I mean, there was nothing going on to our left. So Jessi starts paying attention to that, and I start scanning around with the thermal we had just gotten. And I scan from right to left, and I go over this heat blob, and I go back to it, and I look at it, and I'm like, well, what is this? Snap a photo. It moves. I snap another photo, and then kind of fumble with my flashlight, and it's gone. I had my flashlight hanging from a lanyard around my wrist. I think you can't prove it, that one of them was to our left making noise while the other one was observing us, sneaking up on us, whatever.
Yeah, we've got kind of a process of what we do when we're in those situations. We've got like a procedure that we go through when we hear a sound in one direction.
But I don't think it knew that I could see it on that thermal imager because that's a passive device.
Yeah.
And I think that it realized that I knew it was there, and that's when it ducked down and either hunkered down there in that ditch that we found the next day, or it just jetted off.
Because the thermal doesn't emit IR or anything like that.
Yeah, but I think that it realized, it didn't think that we could see it. I think these things can see IR. I think they can detect IR. I think that's why we have more luck with full spectrum cameras set to ultraviolet sometimes. So
Alan Lassiter, you are getting a gold star today. What do you think about pheromone chips some researchers use? We used pheromone chips in our werewolf experiment series. We used Sasquatch pheromone chips. We use those. We put those out along with wolf lore that we had made by an old family of trappers.
Yeah.
I don't think have we ever told anybody the story about that wolf lore?
We started looking for, we had the idea of part of the LBL massacre story talked about the cologne that the couple was wearing.
Yeah.
And now that's up to debate, and it almost looks like that's a later addition, but we started thinking,
thinking in terms of sense drawing in something.
It's gonna appeal to like one of the biological imperatives. It's either going to be, it's going to think that maybe there's a rival in the area, think that there's something to mate with, something to eat, something to fight. I looked around and I found this place that used to make this guy was a big wolf trapper, and he made like world famous wolf lore. And then his trapping fell out of style. He stopped making it. And then now that wolves have been reintroduced into areas and become a problem, there's wolf trapping that goes on nowadays.
Yeah.
And this guy's grandsons make small batches of it. So I got in touch with them and ordered 3 bottles, and it came to us in
it came to us in a Ziploc bag.
A great value Walmart sandwich bag.
Wrapped in toilet paper and paper towels.
And sealed with black electric tape.
Sealed with electrical tape.
So these guys just mix it up at their house or something, but everybody just raves about it.
I will never forget that day that I always got to go check the P.O. box and stuff. And I'll never forget the day that Joe called me and said, "My wolf piss has arrived. Go to the post office." I'm like, oh my God. I was like, we're going to lose our mailbox privileges if one of those things breaks open. So your wolf piss arrived and I had to go pick it up. But yeah, we did use, we used pheromone chips, and we used that wolf lore in the LBL. I think we're going to do that again. I think we've done that experiment a couple of times at this point, but I think we're going to try it again next time we go to the LBL. I think we're going to just keep kind of run that and run those camera traps again with the pheromone chips and the wolf lore, and just see if we can get anything. That's the thing, is like, if we take kind of a scientific approach, I mean, we're not really scientists, but we try to take as much of a scientific approach to what we do as possible. We want to just keep running these tests as many times as we can and just try to get some more data. So we're definitely going to be doing that again.
Ghetto Yeti said that one night on a nighttime live show on Vault's channel, it seemed legit when he said he got hit with infrasound. It was wild. I have no doubt that he got hit with something. I just don't. My personal opinion is it's not infrasound that these people are getting hit with.
Yeah,
we're going to have the ability to test for that eventually. I think they're getting hit with something. I just don't think it's infrasound. If it is infrasound, then it's something out there that can generate infrasound in a manner and in a volume that we couldn't replicate scientifically right now, which means that, again, that a whale emits infrasound that can be heard for hundreds of miles in the water, and a whale can't generate directed infrasound like that. So I think that if infrasound is a possibility, then that almost rules out it being a natural creature instead of supports that hypothesis. So have you guys ever noticed black SUVs following you on investigation, or men in black? All I'm going to say about that is not men in black, but we did have an encounter with the men in plaid.
Yeah.
Or the men in flannel one day.
Yeah, flannel man. Yeah, we did have an encounter with the men in plaid before. So that's kind of a tale that is related to cryptid sightings. But no, we've never had like a men in black encounter, but something very similar with the men in plaid.
Stephen Master, we heard the story of Rascal the Dogman, raised by people. He was family to them. Real or not? I don't know. I would think that if I was in constant close proximity to a dogman, and it was to the point where I had raised him and it was a member of my family, and I wanted to share that with people, I would have photographic evidence to back that up.
Press X for doubt.
Yes. So if I was, there's a lot of people who don't miss an opportunity to get on in front of a camera, who make wild claims that can't really back any of it up. And I'm just going, well, if you wanted the exposure, why not kind of buttress that exposure up a little bit with some proof behind it. So I don't know. I've only heard those stories secondhand. So
Alan Lester, backing up to this pheromone chip thing, but how do you know what to put in the chips? So the pheromone chips, we actually ordered those from a company, and I don't think they produce them anymore. I think,
their website went off.
Yeah, their website went offline. The government does not want them producing those pheromone chips. But anyway, let's get ahead with the conspiracies there. So the pheromone chips that we got, I think Alex, where did we get the idea for them? Was it Alex Pedikov was doing?
Yeah, Alex Pedikov had some. We saw
Alex Pedikov with Small Town Monsters. He had some of those, and I was like asking him about them because I saw that he had some. And yeah, so he was doing the pheromone chips definitely before we do. So we got that from him. So the pheromone chips are I'm trying to be ginger with how I say this. They're mixture.
Putative pheromones, reproductive sense. So yes, they are reproductive sense of humans and great apes.
Not how I would have put it, but yes, very good, very PG.
Same thing with the wolf lore. That was reproductive sense that's supposed to mimic a female in heat and bring in the wolves. So
Dogman WAP. Okay.
Have a nice day. For the gear that you carry on your excursions, how long is it taken to get to what you are wearing now? Pistol, fixed blade, folding knife, etc. We used to carry like just 9mm with hard cast ammunition. And then things started picking up in the North Georgia area where we go to. And that's when I went ahead and got a 10mm. And then after that LBL incident, when we saw that thing on the thermal that disappeared, I got a little weirded out and we went and bought a Shockwave then. As far as knives go, I change knives like I change socks. I'm on an Essie kick right now as far as fixed blades go.
Yeah.
But, have you ever thought of a Dogman decoy to draw them out from dead end yard hunt? I don't know how we would do that and make it realistic. I don't know how we would do that. If you've got any ideas on how that's something could be done, like I said, we don't bang on trees with sticks.
Yeah, we don't try to like lure things out with stuff like that.
We don't do the same thing constantly. So we're constantly trying to figure out new things to try. So if you've got an idea on something, please reach out to us and we'll give it a shot. So
sounds like a porno going on in the woods then. Thanks, pork and beans. Yes, accurate. Listen, this whole cryptid hunting thing it ain't pretty. It's dark and dirty work sometimes. So when we opened up those pheromones, they are funky. They smell so bad. It was awful. They are quite pungent. They have a funk to them.
The wolf lore wasn't that bad though.
Wolf lore wasn't bad.
It's not as bad as I expected.
It was tangy. It was tangy, but it wasn't as bad as those Sasquatch pheromones.
Jonesstead Farm says they really like our investigative style. Thank you. Again, we're constantly changing stuff up. Like I said earlier, we're trying to take a credible look at incredible stuff. So there's really no instruction manual for this stuff. So we're constantly trying new things. And we're willing to try other stuff too. If anybody ever has any ideas or suggestions.
Yep, you can always get in touch with us. hellbentholler@gmail.com.
Kaiju Ninja wants to know, besides Bigfoot and Dogman, what other cryptids do you think you've encountered? Other than that sighting I had as a kid, I don't think I've ever seen a Sasquatch. We found stereotypical Bigfoot prints. We've found tree twists.
We've heard some very, very strange things.
Something really big charged us one night in the woods, then just seemed to disappear.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before. We used to mock the idea of Dogman, but I think I've seen Dogman on thermal from just a few feet away. I've never done that with Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So for me right now, it's crazy to say, but Dogman's almost more real than Sasquatch is. As far as other stuff, that second thing that we saw in the LBL, I don't know what that was. I just don't know. As far as like physical cryptid things, remember that thing you saw in the trees up in North Georgia?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she saw something and we don't even really talk about it because it could have been an owl but she saw what looked like a manta ray.
Horseshoe crab.
A horseshoe crab. I'm sorry. Yeah, the manta ray.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
but
no. It was okay. All right.
Sorry.
It was no. That's okay. I'm just saying, like, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Until you're telling me this.
We hadn't talked about it forever.
I
yeah,
know.
so, yeah.
No. Yeah, we were out there. Oh my God, this wasn't even like night. This was like at dusk, and we are just out there, and this is in North Georgia as usual. Jesus, that place is so freaking weird. So there's this tree, and it's a pretty sizable tree, and I'm telling you, dead to rights, right there. I am telling you, I saw what looked like a freaking horseshoe crab, but a giant one. And you know what a horseshoe crab looks like? It's like the big shell, looks like almost like a turtle shell, and then it's got the spiny tail. It had everything, and it looked like a horseshoe crab, but giant, and it scurried up a tree like right in front of me. I saw this happen. I absolutely saw this happen. So yeah, that was so weird, right? I mean, is that a cryptid?
I don't know.
The horseshoe crab.
Yeah, I was misremembering. I knew it was like some sort of, because I think I asked you at the time when you said horseshoe crab, I went, do you mean like manta? Because I'm thinking, well, maybe you saw the undulations on the side and it was a bird and you were like, no, it's a horseshoe crab.
Sucker just scurried straight up a tree. It was so
Rob S said maybe try a hex hunting base layer to get close. We're actually thinking about doing that in the fall.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're probably going to experiment with that and see if we get any results from it. So, and if you've used it and you have any personal experience beyond the stuff we read online, please contact us and let us know. I want to know if anybody else has had any success with it.
Yeah, if you've done anything with the hex stuff, we're interested in just buying like the underwear, right? Like the base layers.
Yeah.
Not just the underwear. We're not gonna have just the underwear. If you have a hex thong, but the hex base layers, that's what we're thinking about getting. That way we can just wear them under our clothes, and it'll be fall and winter, and that'll block the.
Today, Saban wants to know our thoughts on the Guidestones bombing. We were nowhere near when it happened.
Nope.
Nope.
So nice try, Mr. FBI man. All right.
Dead End Yard Haunts goes, I'm more worried about men with banjos. We kind of touch upon that in the next podcast that we're releasing.
Yes, we do.
Our next podcast, we're going to talk about backwoods cults and feral humans, especially in this part of the country. So.
Regina Davis says, love watching your content. Just curious, are you two a couple? Great chemistry. We've considered it.
Big Alan Laster wants to know if we've heard of Bigfoot doing belly crawls. That is something I'm extremely interested in. And it's something you really didn't hear about too terribly much a few years ago, is the spider crawl that these things supposedly do. And it's people who have had first person like sightings of it, they seem to struggle with articulating what exactly it looks like. I've seen one person who kind of did an artist's rendition, but it seems like people have a hard time talking about how they do it, almost as if they struggle with how these things are able to contort their bodies in that manner.
Like some of them, they're like a spider, right? Like,
yeah, but they talk about how they're on their fingers and toes, and they just it's a weird thing. It's always I'd love to see somebody who had a first person encounter of it do a drawing to kind of like replicate what they saw at that point. So Pork and Beans wants to know, what about ghosts or anything encountered like that? I
have had so many freaking ghost encounters throughout my life. This has been going on my entire life. I have seen full body apparitions since I was very, very since I can remember. I have seen like full body apparitions, and I've spoken with apparitions. So this has been a thing that I've been doing, and it has been happening to me my entire life. So yes, and we've actually started doing a little more ghost related type stuff. That was like my first kind of interest in the paranormal, was getting into more ghost centric stuff. So we started doing a little bit of that. We're working on a little series right now where we're doing some Estes sessions in a very, very weird place. So yeah,
I don't think there is a such thing as ghosts. I think that people are experiencing something else. I don't think you're dealing with the leftover spirit from somebody from the 17th century that's still hanging out. So we'll look. She and I have different opinions on it, so I'll look into the phenomenon, and I think that there's something there. I just don't think it's the ghost of a deceased human being. So Tiffany Keeling wants to know if we've ever thought about setting up a fake camp with cooking bacon and people coming in and out of camp to see if we get a reaction to the camp at the LBL.
So I guess we could just go and camp and.
Yeah, we never have much luck setting up stationary, and it would be so much easier if we could.
That would be great
because it's a pain to try to go through the brush even in the fall and winter and juggle equipment and a camera, and you've got tree limbs smacking against your audio recorder, and you're trying to keep everything charged on the move, and it's a pain.
But we just have we have such better luck with things happening when we're kind of on the move, you know.
Yeah, and I wish it wasn't that way because it'd be so much easier to set it up stationary.
Yeah.
But the few times we've tried to set up stationary, we usually get frustrated after 6 or 7 hours, and then we end up just throwing our packs on and then going out into the woods.
But I think this goes back to if we set up like a fake camp scenario. I think this goes back to something we've discussed before, that these things are not dumb. They're very, very intelligent, and they're going to know, maybe it's our vibe or something like that we give off, but these things know what kind of people they can attack or they can mess with and which ones they can't. And I think that, there's a study done. There's like a criminal study done that there's these people who are career criminals who can look at pictures of people and they can pick out in a lineup which people they would rob and which ones they wouldn't. And I don't know if it's just the attitude or the vibe you give off that you're situationally aware, that you're prepared for something happening, but you're not a victim of these things. And I think that these things are not dumb, and then they would see us and, we look like as normal as I guess he and I can look at any point in time, but we're still packing 10mm Glocks and stuff. So, and we have all this equipment and stuff like hidden away. I just don't think we could fool anything that seems to be of such a high intelligence, but it's an idea.
Crow Creek Cryptids wants to know, have you encountered orbs?
Yes.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we have one video, and I don't know if it's private or not because we were babbling so badly when we saw it that we sound like complete idiots.
The spook lights.
Spook lights, yeah.
No, I don't think that's up anymore.
Yeah.
If I do that from the I don't even know what I want to call it, like the Hellbent Holler, like from the archives thing. From our first Lost Cove expedition we ever did, there's a lot of footage from that, but we encounter a lot of spook lights when we're trying to climb the mountain to get out of Lost Cove.
Yeah, we saw them in Lost Cove. We've seen them in North Georgia. The last LBL video we did, there's so many lights in the woods at that point. People are constantly messaging us going, did you see this light at such and such timestamp? And I go back and look at it and I go, yeah, there it is. I didn't notice it at the time.
The weirdest one from the LBL series, the most recent LBL series, I think the weirdest one for me, the weirdest like orb or unexplained light in the woods. The weirdest one for me, I think, is from that third episode that we did for Werewolf Experiments. It's the one where we're looking into that maintenance shed, and in the knot hole in the wall,
that reflective light appears for a second.
There is a light that pops into that knot hole, and Joe's standing next to me. I'm here with the camera. Joe's standing over here behind me. I'm sitting here with the camera, and the knot hole is right over here, and it's just a hole in the side of the shed, and a light pops in and then pops out. It's so weird. Go watch that video whenever you get a chance, and you can see it. It's just like, I think Elijah Henderson
messaged
like, did you
recently.
see the light in the shed? We're like, yeah, no, it's weird. So we get those all the time.
Bullish Bowser wants to know if we have any new thoughts on the cave systems being used by cryptids.
I think they are. I mean, it makes sense, if these are things that could travel unseen. I think a subterranean cave system would absolutely be the perfect way for them to travel and, get out of the human view very quickly and very easily. People don't go in a lot of those caves, and Kentucky has the largest cave system.
Oh yeah, Kentucky's just riddled between the caves and the old mines and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's like an underground highway.
Kaju Ninja 1985, what are your thoughts as to why we haven't found any bodies of Bigfoot or Dogman? Is it because of carnivores, burials, or natural decomposition in the woods? That is something that I constantly think about, and you would think that if they are normal biological creatures that are just staying hidden, we'd find something, man.
Yeah.
We'd find something. Now, here's the other thing I go back to as well, that just think for a second about how easy this would be for the powers that be to do this to you, okay? You're hiking along in the woods. You come across just a dead Sasquatch laying there 3 miles in from the woods next to a trail, okay? You come back and you alert it to somebody and they make it disappear. You're going to sound like a crazy person. They don't even have to tell you to be quiet. You're going to be another one of these people on these Facebook groups. I was out hiking in the woods. I came across this Bigfoot body. They disappeared it. Okay. You're just going to be another story amongst everything else. Let's take it one step further. Let's say you do what everybody always talks about. What would I do if I found a Bigfoot body? Well, I would try to take a tooth for the DNA. I might try to cut a foot off and take it out with me. Anything like that. How easy would it be if they wanted to keep this quiet, that the Men in Black or just the feds, your state wildlife, organization, your fish and wildlife guys show up, take whatever you have, and then go, oh, there was a private animal menagerie, and this guy had a gorilla and escaped, and it ended up dead. And here's the gorilla body. That's what you saw, and they present a dead gorilla body.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's just going to go, he saw an escaped gorilla. I mean, they could pretty much cover up anything at this point that they want to, and they don't even really need to silence you afterwards, because you're just going to sound like a crazy person talking about it.
Yeah.
If you put photos out, I mean, you see how every piece of photographic or video evidence gets received online. People are poking holes on it, before it's been up for 5 minutes. So but I don't know. I don't know why the bodies aren't there. These things are obviously physical, even if they're interdimensional,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just so odd.
Let's see. Kaiju Ninja, 1985. Have you seen any UFOs? I think for me that goes back to the orb question. I think that the orbs that we see, the lights that have seemingly like they're connected to nothing, I think those could be considered UAPs. Those are unidentified aerial phenomenon, but I've never seen actually, I don't think I've seen a UFO. I don't know. I couldn't say for certain. That's a thing.
I saw something strange in the sky one night, but it was near a major Air Force base.
Yeah.
So I immediately wrote it off as being something with that. We have not seen anything. Well, we saw that one thing around the house that time. Yeah.
We saw the flaming ghost thing.
Yeah.
But we did also, this is weird. We were in the parking lot of Cabela's. We were in the parking lot of Cabela's. We were about to go into Cabela's, and there's this man looking up at the sky, and he's like shielding his eyes because it's kind of a sunny day. It's a really sunny day, and he's shielding his eyes. We're like, what are you looking at, man? He goes, do you see that up there? We're like, what? And we were looking, and we were just staring, and then we saw it. There is something just moving in such a strange way. It's like hovering right above us, but it was so high that you could barely see it. But it's not like a plane. It was traveling across the sky. It was like up there kind of hovering and then kind of moving a little bit, but it never really left that same little airspace. But it was definitely something solid and something up there. So we stood out there, for half an hour with this stranger just staring up at some UFO in the sky in the parking lot of Cabela's. So that's our very exciting UFO story.
Carrie from Lane County Bigfooters. Hey, Carrie. Jessi, how many EVPs have you gotten? And I'm going to kind of answer that because I usually do the audio review stuff. I take our audio and put it in a spectrogram on Audacity and filter out all the background noises to look for large spikes when we leave these little drop mics anywhere. I know that when I do that, if there is an EVP or something that's low frequency, I'm deleting that out. And I know that just because specifically we're not looking for that when we're out on a cryptid hunt. Now, we do have a case that's fairly near to our house that we might release the footage on, where Jessi and her paranormal partner, Katie, were led to believe that a child was buried in this wooded area behind a house that's there. We find an old bricked over what looks like a root cellar where we were told to go look at.
Yeah, this is after we have done several Estes sessions, and the entity that we're speaking to, I don't know what it is. And it actually told us during an Estes session where to go look to find where something is buried or someone is buried, and we go there and there's this like bricked over root cellar, and yeah.
So I take a long duration audio recorder that we have set up for Bigfoot research and lower a microphone into the area that's kind of crumbled in, because we found this hole in the ground and then realized the hole led into a larger void that looks like it was an old root cellar or something like that, that somebody's bricked over, which I guess if you want to just engage in some wild conjecture, you would do if you were hiding a body. So we left the microphone dangling by the cable there overnight. And when I reviewed it a couple of days later, we've got a child's voice on it. Now this is underground, so we're not picking up anything else. You're not picking up a plane going overhead or anything like that, but there's a child's voice on it. So,
yeah, there is a child's voice on it. It's very strange. Sorry, don't mean to give you guys dead air. We're just going through this chat.
All these questions still.
Trying to keep up with the chat. My boy.
What was that video called? The Light in the Knothole. That was the third LBL video.
Werewolf Experiments.
It's number 3. Yeah, that was the
Werewolf
third one.
Experiments Part 3.
And I'll send you, Carrie, I'll send you the timestamp on it. Or actually, I'll send you the video clip that somebody clipped for us and magnified in on it. It's just a little knothole that's to the side of this utility shed, and we're walking up and we have a full spectrum camera out, and it looks like eye shine coming through that knothole for just a split second, and it's big, it's sizable. It doesn't look like it's a chipmunk or something like that looking at us. So
no, it has its own, it's self-illuminated. It's not like it's not eye shine or anything.
Midnight Among Monsters is a small channel and boot on the ground. Can you recommend a decent starter thermal? All of this equipment is so expensive. It is, man. I mean, we started off after Panther Town when we decided, when the shock kind of wore off, and we decided we were going to try to document some of the stuff. We had a little handheld night vision camcorder that we got off Amazon Warehouse.
Yep.
And then we grabbed some cheap knockoff GoPro action cams. And then we've just slowly built, because again, this is like our main full-time job nowadays. And the other stuff's just to kind of fund this. I would recommend that, depending on what you want to use it for, your channel name is Midnight Among Monsters, not Midnight Among Ghosts. So I'm assuming you're going to be doing outdoor stuff. The low level FLIRs, like the FLIR 1 and the Scout TK.
Scout TK is our first thermal that we
That's going to work for real close stationary objects. It doesn't have a really good refresh rate. Honestly, if you want to get into a usable working thermal, get the entry level AGM. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's the AGM is the brand, and it is the 135 or whatever. We can tell you what, we'll post a link in the show notes here after we're done for it, but it's pricey. I mean, none of it's cheap. I mean, for something like this, I mean, unfortunately, you have to pay for the tech as far as this goes.
Oh yeah,
it's getting less expensive as it goes along, but I definitely wouldn't recommend. You're going to be tempted to get that Scout TK, and then you're just going to go, I just wish I'd saved back a little bit longer and got something that's actually usable out in the field. So
yeah, the Scout TK is okay, but it's there's definitely better stuff out there for just a little bit more. I know I'm about out of water here. Somebody asked what I was drinking. It's water. I'm drinking water. I'm hydrating as best I can. You need a third wheel off-camera associate for the comments. I agree.
Again, we just kind of got caught off guard by all this today. We just figured we'd pop on,
here.
and
we also, it's just us two doing everything. With Hellbent Holler, it's just the two of us doing literally everything.
There's no camera crew. There's nobody manning any of the other stuff.
I do all the editing. I do all the design work and everything like that. So,
Alan Lassiter, not to cut you off, it's a good one. Do you believe in killing one, or you just want to watch them and learn what they do?
I'd like to watch and learn what they do, but I think that a lot of them, and in terms of like Dogman or Sasquatch, I think that a lot of them are just going to be too aggressive. You know, like a Dogman seems like it's going to be an aggressive situation to me. Sasquatch maybe not, but I don't want to just like I wouldn't just, if I see like a Sasquatch at a distance, and it's just out in the field, I'm not plugging it, that's not going to happen. I'm not a monster.
I think these things are predatory, and just because it's not trying to predate upon you at that moment doesn't mean it's not going to do that to somebody else down the road. So I think
you're
we're in a little bit of a loggerheads with
You're
this.
putting it down early, huh?
Yeah. So have you ever thought about learning to scuba dive and encounter underwater ghosts?
Oh, Jesus.
No.
I didn't think my plate was full enough. Now
yeah,
I gotta
man,
learn how to scuba dive.
I'm gonna leave that to you, Spooktator Bob. So,
please.
Kaiju Ninja 1985. Can you talk about running into the flannel dude that you ran into? What happened? It wasn't one, it was three, and we will probably do a Panther Town episode. I don't want to jazz it up too much because it was very impactful to me, but if I said it, you're going to be underwhelmed by it. So
yeah, I'm totally going to go get some water because I'm
grab
dying.
some for me as well.
Yeah,
so
I'll get you some as well.
Yeah. Carrie from Wayne County is talking about the fact that the FLIR is okay, but again, you really want to upgrade to like a Pulsar or something like that.
That Pulsar is awesome.
Yeah, and we'll do a thing on thermal. We've gotten really heavy into thermal lately, and we're probably going to continue to get heavier into it as it gets more and more.
Don't be distracted.
More and more affordable at this point. So.
Creaky door.
Magnet fishing, talking about Slender Man. Yeah, that's something that I think definitely is. I think it's firmly in the creepypasta realm, not something that really exists. Although I think there are like a lot of those pale kind of crawler type things that actually might exist out there. Patrick Phillips wanted to know, are Dogman a creature from old times, and has the government resurrected its DNA, or have they always been around? That's something that we've kind of talked about a lot lately, and it's obvious that there have been reports of these things going back about as long as there's been people to report them. And it seems that there are some that appear to be completely physical, while there seem to be some that seem to be demonic, I guess is the term for it. I'm going to tell you my theory on Bigfoot is that there are both physical creatures and then metaphysical entities that resemble each another, but don't have the same origins, and they're all lumped in together as Sasquatch. I think the same thing with Dogman. I think that there are some creatures that have some more than a passing similarity to one another physically, but might have different origins. I'm thinking right now that my current theory is that there are some that are purely demonic that are able to manifest themselves and look like this. Some that are the product of some sort of government involvement, because there's just too many stories about, I don't want to phrase this. The whole thing about the LBL is weird, man. I understand the history of it, and they put the lakes in and hydroelectricity, but the seizing of the land, the way it's been handled since then, I think that there's some sort of government involvement with some of these creatures on a level that we don't understand yet, and that it goes beyond just trying to control the population. Whether you want to get into like, are they like hybrid creatures or everything like that? I think it's a real good possibility. So, real good possibility.
Yes.
Dead End Yard Hunt. Are there dogmen in East Texas that you've ever heard of? A friend of ours actually is writing a book right now about dogmen in Texas, where he covers a lot of it. And I was actually very surprised by the amount and the validity of some of the dogman reports that he's taken through that area. So, yeah, there's a ton all through East and Central Texas.
Yes,
so.
It's Aaron Deese with High Strangeness, and he is actually publishing a book on the Texas Dogman through STM Publishing. That's the Small Town Monsters Publishing wing. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be out. That's going to be a really good book.
Steve M., if we're upgrading, looking to a 12-gauge shotgun that can shoot 3-inch Magnum slugs, we carry the Shockwave. We usually just carry double buck in it. I've looked at the those black magic bear slugs before, but I just don't know if you'd be able to get off more than one shot with a Shockwave, just with a pistol grip like that bird head grip on it. So we just stick with just regular powered double buck in it then. James Barker talks about the black-eyed kids fall into that realm too, more of a creepypasta modern mythology. I think so. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't want to rule it out, but we hear a really wide range of stuff nowadays.
Oh yeah.
And everything from people talking to us about lake monsters that we don't really dive into at all. But they still approach us with it, but nobody's ever approached us about a black-eyed kid sighting. So if somebody has one, I'd love to hear about it. So
I ain't messing with these kids.
Polish Browser wants to know, do we believe that they are migrating creatures or they have established habitats? I think that there seems to be movement in the sightings and the encounters. And I can't explain that. It doesn't make sense that they migrate, but maybe it does. I don't know. But it definitely does seem as if the pattern of sightings and encounters seems to drift.
Well, that might also occur because of where people are to have these sightings. In order to have a sighting, you need a person who's going to have the sighting and then something for them to sight. So could it be that the sightings kind of change based on where people are during that time of year?
Yeah.
So
Tiffany Keeling wants to know, how close was that tornado to you in the LBL? It ended up not being close to us, although you could hear the storm in the distance very easily.
yeah, they thought it was going to take a turn up to where we were. And we ended up, I mean, at the end of that video, you can see us just going through some heavy rain. We were crossing over the Cumberland, getting out of there. And it was just like one of the most terrifying drives I've ever done.
Yeah, we went and got a hotel. We found a hotel that we could get into and then stayed up all night long watching the tornado coverage because we didn't know if we needed to hop back in the car and try to run from the tornado.
And then right after that, you guys, I know if you've seen that series, the Werewolf Experiment series, if you guys did not watch that, we went through that tornado situation and that was bad enough. And then we had a freaking ice storm
that came in after that.
And it was like, I want to ask, like, if anybody in the chat right now, if any of you live in Kentucky, which I know a few of you do, some of you said you live like right by the LBL and you grew up there. Is it just in February? Is the weather just that crazy all the time? Or is that just like all the time? You just like have just major weather events back to back. It's just so, just the weather was wild. We've talked, like I said before, we've talked about moving up to Kentucky and living near the LBL and really dedicating a lot of time to the LBL and spending more time out there consistently. But my God, if the weather is like it was every time we go up there, we're just like, maybe not, you know.
But we didn't know how close it was at the time. I mean, we're in there. There's no cell signal. We have a Garmin InReach Mini that's a personal locator beacon that we can send satellite text with, which we have going on. So in case we go missing during this, sometimes they'll be able to track our last known location with that at least. And it can send and receive satellite texts. So we were in there and we got, you know, the person that we stay in contact with started sending us text messages going, there's a tornado in your area.
Yeah.
And we can hear the storm. The storm's getting like closer and closer. And so at the time when we're there, all we can go on is that we're being told that there's a tornado in our area and we can hear that. And we are in an area that got hit with a bad tornado a few months before. So a lot of those trees are hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
And
that bad tornado that came through in December, Regina on here, she said that her whole town of Mayfield is completely, Regina Davis, there you are.
Yeah.
I live about 35 minutes from the LBL in Mayfield, Kentucky. Our whole town is gone. Regina, I'm sure is that from the December tornado? That thing was awful. What a tragedy. Yeah. Oh, I've got one here. Mikey Likes It says, I mentioned my mom saw a dogman across from our family house in a Chicago neighborhood. Her house is across from a large cemetery. Do you think that they're any relation? Yes. There are so many stories of dogman sightings right by cemeteries. That is one of the things. It seems like Dogman sightings happen in these liminal spaces. There's a cemetery. Hopefully there's not a seminary there, but there's a cemetery right by where the alleged massacre site is at LBL. There's tons of Dogman sightings near cemeteries and near Native American mounds, which are also tend to be burial sites. I don't know what the connection is. I don't know what it is there, but it seems like that where there's a cemetery, where there's a Dogman sighting, they seem to like come together. So could it be that, somebody mentioned before, it's like a connection with the gates of hell or something like that?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it seems to follow that pattern of disturbances in the earth, like mines, tunnels, caves, cemeteries, Indian mounds.
These like bridge areas, that
yeah,
connect.
Those like liminal spots. So.
Yeah, it's like these bridge zones.
What have we had here?
Guys, we have been here for a long time.
Yeah, we're going to be wrapping it up before too long. Jim Thompson, what was your most freaked out encounter ever? It was Panther Town, the first time that it got really, really weird for us. That was when we left out, we got in the car and we had been driving probably for like an hour before, just in silence. And then we're just like, do we want to talk about what just happened back there? And came home, and then it just seemed like overnight our lives just shifted.
Yeah.
That all of our other hobbies and pursuits just kind of dropped by the wayside.
Yes.
And now our house is filled with recording equipment and backpacks and, old maps and everything like that. So Not today, Sabin wants to know, in the midst of your research, have you all looked into the reasoning for the state of South Carolina roads? Because only something paranormal and predatory could cause that dumpster fire.
Oh God, it's so bad.
We know our limits, man. We're not looking into that. That's
You're looking for a miracle worker there.
That's infernal.
South Carolina roads are awful, and it takes them like years to do just one small little thing.
And let's see here. Most remote geographical investigation. We're mostly in like I said, the southern Appalachia area. Kentucky's kind of actually for where we're located at. That's about the farthest we go to from our home base.
But in terms of like remote, going out in the middle of nowhere, there's a place that we went to. I guess one of our Georgia spots is so far out there that if we needed help for anything, it would take us hiking out for several hours and then getting to our vehicle
and driving an hour and a half.
Driving an hour and a half to the first paved road at that point. So then we have to drive another hour and a half to where we get to where we have cell signal. Mm-hmm. So that is why we always carry a Garmin InReach Mini. It is a satellite communicator GPS unit, and it does have the SOS feature that if something happens, something catastrophic happens to us, we can always just hit that, and then search and rescue will be notified, and somebody will come and help us.
Alan Laster wants to know, do we think Dogman is an offbreed of a hellhound? Actually, we've got a show that we're working upon right now that kind of compares the American Dogman kind of surge and sightings with the black dog phenomenon in Great Britain. Mm-hmm. So I think that there might be some sort of connection between the two. So Kaiju Ninja, what is the best evidence of Dogman that is out there that you've gathered or seen from others? Is there a piece of evidence that is like the Patterson film? There's two things. Well, there's a couple things on this.
We have the Dogman thermal. So.
I think that thermal image that we collected, the thermal images that we collected, is pretty good, but at the same token, it's not a smoking gun.
No.
The PGF's not a smoking gun. I don't think anything short of a body that was able to avoid being confiscated would be a smoking gun. There is not as much what you would term physical evidence of Dogman as there is for Bigfoot, there's also not as many people out seriously involved with looking for that sort of stuff. And that's something that hopefully is going to change over the next little while. There's a lot of people. I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you ever hear anybody talking about, I go out into the field, I do boots on the ground research looking for Dogman. Okay, even if you haven't found Dogman, where's the evidence that you were ever out in the field in the first place? I mean, obviously you're talking about it openly and you're telling people this. You want people to know that you're doing it. I think that when it gets down to it, that there's far fewer people actually involved in boots on the ground research than a lot of people think. Because a lot of people talk about the fact that they're out doing it.
But they don't ever have videos or photos of them out doing what we do. Like we have videos. I mean, I have hours now. Obviously, you guys have seen them. We have hours of video of us actually going to these places and investigating them. And we're there for days at a time. Like we have video of this.
So there's just not that many people out looking. And the other thing I want to say, though, too, is that something that I've really been looking into lately is that maybe some of the evidence that's out there that people think has been debunked, maybe it hasn't really been debunked after all. Just because somebody on the internet told you that an image that you see or a piece of video footage, that's been debunked. Don't take them for their word for it. You do the research on it. And again, if we think that there's any sort of government involvement with this, we know that back in the 50s and the 60s, the Air Force was sending people into UFO groups, private citizen UFO groups, to keep tabs on them and to spread misinformation, to kind of cause dissension, to kind of derail the private civilian, research into the UFO movement. If you don't think the same thing is going on right now with modern day phenomena, then you're deluded.
You absolutely have disinformation agents entering the cryptid space for sure, especially with all of the UFO disclosure going on. Now the cryptid space is going to be the thing that they're going to try to keep a lid on at this point. So
if you want to get past very compelling personal accounts like Martin Grove's, Bart Nunley, what he experienced, look at some of this stuff that's come out now. There was one, there's like a handful of Dogman images that you see online that are trotted out. I've seen one where they literally found the stuffed wolf in a museum and matched it up with that photo. That's debunked. That thing has been debunked. Okay, we can look at it and somebody has gone, it's fake. Here it is. Okay, I still have questions about the Gables film. Yeah, that guy claims that he did it and claims that he used a ghillie suit, but that reenactment it doesn't move like the original thing does. So I guess my thing is that there's really no smoking gun evidence out there yet, but some of the supporting evidence, there might be more of it than people are maybe willing to admit. And that some of the stuff that's been debunked, supposedly, I'm not quite willing to say whether it's not true. So Anna says, Johnstead Farm. Yes, you guys should move here to Kentucky and close to LBL. That'd be amazing for someone to consistently investigate that area. Imagine the evidence you'd gather. It's still on the table. We might move there. We love that area. Just really love it. I think I've already decided I'm probably going to write a book about the LBL because there's so much about the history and the paranormal aspects of it that just have absolutely enthralled me. So I think I'm going to begin work on that. That's going to be a multi-year process, but I would like to do that. Alan Lassett, if you want to send us that photo, I'd love to see it, man. He's got a picture. A friend sent him of a Dogman. He can messenger us the picture. Please do. You can message us that, or you can email it to hellbentholler@gmail.com. If you guys have not hit that like button yet, make sure you hit that like button. That just helps us out. We want to get our stuff out to more people. And then when we do one of these again, which is hopefully soon, because this has been a blast, we would like more people to join us. So make sure you share and tell your friends about our channel as well. Stephen M., the Gable film, for example, debunked, or was the debunk a cover-up? Exactly right. I don't know. I'm not willing to take anybody's word for it because especially if we all have our suspicions that there's some sort of cover up or something like that out there. The the guy who was in charge of the U.S. government's Project Blue Book, Alan Hynek, would go around and tell you that you saw swamp gas, you saw Venus,
Weather balloons.
that was a meteor that just happened to be coming through. You were seeing the city lights reflected upon the clouds, who came out afterwards going, I was told to go in and debunk things at all costs and tell people that they did not see what they saw. So think how the manpower and the resources it was to have a world-class scientist with a support crew funded by the Air Force, going around, traveling around, actually looking into these, having press conferences. Think of the effort that's involved with that. Now think of the effort it is to put some bots online to just basically tell you that all the evidence that you see is fake. I'm not saying the Gable swim was real. I'm also saying it's not real because the evidence that was supported to debunk it was not satisfactory for me. So exactly right. Alec Hynek being one of the strongest proponents for the UAP research in the end. So
that tells you everything you
tells
need
you
to
everything
know.
you need to know for it. So have you ever seen the German soldiers and dead Dogman photo? I have, and it's been a few years since I've seen it. There was talk at the time that it was for a movie that was never shot, but if somebody was able to trot out more images of that to support that, I'd be willing to believe it. I don't know enough about that to really. I remember seeing it, and at the time, it didn't look period authentic, but that was just my own guess. I'm not a photography expert, so I don't know.
Yeah. Midnight Amongst Monsters. I have hundreds of hours of video. Problem is, I don't have the time to go through it all. I've just started loading it to my audience to help find things. How do you manage to go through it all? So I do all of the editing. I do all the editing by myself. And then not only do we each have a GoPro for daytime use. We each have night cams, the full spectrum cam. We have audio recorders. We have thermal. We keep adding pieces to this, and
that's more footage to review.
Footage to review.
People often go, have you guys tried the rear-facing GoPro like other people have done? We've tried it, and we never really got any luck with it, and I'm not saying it's not a worthwhile pursuit. We just don't. I mean, even if we do, we're never going to be able to review the footage for it. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Just like I talked about with the audio recordings, I have to filter out a lot of that and look for audible spikes, and I know that because we've caught EVPs on.
It does help for audio to do the spectrographs.
Yeah, but it's just we know that we're going to miss it, and that's one way to tell somebody who's actually out doing it. Well, there's two ways to tell. A, are you overwhelmed by the amount of footage that you have to review afterwards? And B, do you constantly complain about keeping everything charged in the field?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we don't have videos out constantly. It's because number one, stuff doesn't always happen when we go out. That's the thing. We only put the good stuff up online. That's why everybody's like, oh my God, every video you have, something crazy happens. That's because I'm not sharing you videos of us just bouncing through the woods and nothing happening. But yeah, I go through all that footage, I put it together, and it takes a while for me to get a video out because it's me doing it by myself, and I've taught myself how to edit video. So it's a process, but I'm trucking along. I'm getting better at it as I go. But if you want to get into doing this, that's the thing. I didn't know how to edit video when I first started out. Go look at my first video that I put on my channel. It's not great. And I didn't have great software or anything like that. I just taught myself, and I got better and better and better as I went along. And then I bought better software, and that's just how you do it. You just go through it a little bit at a time and just bite it off a little piece at a time. And just you get better as you go. Mikey Likes It just asked, do we have a Patreon page? We do not. We do not have a Patreon page. Just make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and everything to our channel, and that'll help us. That gets our stuff in front of people. Right now, again, we both have full-time jobs, and Hellbent Holler is just another full-time job for both of us. I think down the road, I'm going to do a Patreon if there is enough interest for it, and I will produce Patreon exclusive content for that. I don't know if there's enough interest for us to have a Patreon page. That would be something, if you guys are interested in us doing that, letting us know, and then we'll kind of get the ball rolling on that eventually. So
Clan SCC, have you seen the St. Pierce, Florida Dogman footage? That's the footage that Blue took in Florida, if I remember correctly. You can maybe let me know on that. But if it is that footage, I saw the live stream when he had that thing running across the back of his yard. People have attempted to debunk that, saying it's cigarette smoke, but I saw that as it happened that night when he was streaming on Facebook, I believe it was. Is it Facebook or YouTube? I can't remember, but I don't know what that is, but that was not cigarette smoke that was going across his backyard. That was something running across his backyard that just looked otherworldly.
Alan Lassiter sent these photos to my messenger here, so I'm gonna show them to Joe. What is that? You see that?
I don't know.
Take a look at that.
Alan Lassiter, we'll get in touch with you after this.
Yeah, we'll talk to you about this because these are pretty interesting photos.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Well, that also doesn't look like any Dogman photo I've ever seen on.
Well, no, but look at the ears and the hump.
Well, what I'm saying is a lot of these. What I'm saying is it looks pretty.
That looks really good.
It doesn't look like anything else I've ever seen. So that's very interesting. Yeah.
Rob S. said, do you think national parks are parks because they are cryptid spaces, kind of like 411 suggests?
We thought about that with the LBL. We talk about how LBL is such a unwelcoming place, that it's so wild and grown up. It's supposed to be a national recreation area, but it's completely just kind of abandoned and not maintained, except for in the very specific small camping areas or Turkey Bay off-road area. That's like the only places where anything is kind of maintained. So it's kind of we think that maybe it's kind of left that way, so it kind of just dies, and that maybe this Dogman situation is kind of contained to the LBL, because I mean you could easily contain something there.
Kaju Ninja wants to know, do we use a parabolic? Yeah, actually we looked into building one at first, and then we ended up dropping the coin on a Wildtronics Mini Pro. It's what wildlife photographers and wildlife biologists use. It's really difficult to use on the move, just because it was a little bit more in depth than when I originally thought it was going to be getting into it. We have the Wildtronics parabolic, then we have an XLR mic that goes into it, which goes into a Zoom H4n Pro that can take an XLR hookup, and then we need to run that on a battery backup. So it's kind of cumbersome. We've set it up stationary before. We've honestly never gotten anything on the parabolic, but sometimes it feels like we're almost chasing aspects of the phenomenon with tech.
Yeah,
we have a weird sound we hear. Oh, we've got to get a parabolic, and then we never hear anything that we've been able to catch with a parabolic. But we do have one, and I'm sure it's going to pay off one of these days. So, the email address is hellbentholler@gmail.com. So.
Is our stream going through okay? Are we like clipping or anything? Are we pausing, anything like that? Because this is our first go of it, so just let us know if this is coming through okay and everything's working.
Steve M wants to know, do we work with or considered collaborating with other YouTubers? So far, this has been a pretty solitary thing for us. We correspond with people. Lane County Bigfooters is on here. We talk to Carrie out west all the time, compare notes. We compare notes with a few people north of us. We talk to Barton Nunnally and Elijah Henderson quite a bit. So there's some people we correspond with. As far as going out in the field with, it's just always been the two of us.
Yeah.
So, and we don't really have any plans. We've got something kind of in the works down the road with some more people, but Michael Little says a lot of people think the strangeness in the LBL is related to the Trail of Tears being through there. Yeah, that's something that we've actually discussed before, that the Trail of Tears cutting through there it couldn't have helped. It had to contribute to the weirdness somewhat. So
we always like to go to the Museum of the Cherokee in Cherokee, North Carolina, and they have a really, really just beautiful museum there.
Kaiju Ninja 1985, have you casted Dogman tracks? No, we haven't. We don't really cast, period. We casted a weird 4-toed print we found in Georgia. But because generally we're on foot, pretty far from the car. Even when we've rucked out the casting material and all that, getting the print back. We've brought a few back that have broken. That four-toed one was about the only successful one we've done. I wish I could have cast that track with those claw marks that we found next to the bunkers the night that storm rolled in, but we had to get out of there. I got film footage of it and a few still images of it, but I would have liked to have cast that though. So.
Right, so everybody's saying the stream is functioning fine.
Cool.
Good.
We'll
That's
go a
all
few
we
more
wanna
minutes
know.
before we cut out. We still got people.
Yeah,
in there,
well,
so.
actually, we're gonna go for. We've actually managed to maintain everybody or most people at this point. But thank you guys for all like joining in and watching us. Yeah, we're gonna keep going for a little bit here. Everybody's having fun. Everybody's enjoying themselves. Let's see. What we got here. Carrying cast sucks, especially when you have a broken wrist and your buddy has carry it all. Yep.
Carrie is clumsy in the woods. So some of the other questions that we got earlier, let me go through those here real quick.
All right. Just want to say hello to a bunch of our friends that are watching tonight. Frank, Katie, Drew Muse, Mark Troll. Is there friends and family? James Barker.
We got a message from Norman Updike that said, I've heard people say that these dogmen are just another type of Bigfoot. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know. I mean, there are some that seem to have more human-like or primate-like bodies with dog heads, and then there's some that just seem to be
distinctly canine,
that are just on two legs. Again, I think there's more than one thing going on.
And the behavior seems different between the two creatures, you know.
And it's weird because you hear a lot of people nowadays, especially as this topic's gotten more popular, talking about the Gugway, the, Janosquas, this and that. Humanity has a tendency to try to put things into boxes, especially when you don't understand what it is. Its base, you want to try to quantify it just to understand it. I don't think we know enough about these things to really to really just kind of label them like that. You know what I'm saying? Like how do you say it? It's people wanting to collect Pokemon a lot of times,
Yeah, it seems to be what happens with a lot of people that are into cryptids, that it's almost like collecting Pokemon, that it's like, oh, what's your favorite cryptid, but these are creatures that are, some of them are very aggressive and violent. There are people who have lost their lives dealing with these things. There are people who are gone, like their families will never see them again because of these creatures. So,
Bullish Bowser, ever discover any kind of strange nest? We actually found, when we dipped into the LBL after the Dogman conference, we found a strange, it almost looked like a little hut more than anything else.
It looked like a structure, like a something that you would just go into and hide. It looked like a little hut. Yeah, like a little hut.
And if there had been foliage on those branches, you never would have seen it. We do have an interesting, in this area in North Georgia we go to, it borders a wildlife management area, but you never see anybody in there hunting.
Yeah.
And we were actually up there one day kind of scouting out. We see another vehicle, which is just weird seeing it up there. It's these old unmaintained like forestry roads. So, and the vehicle's fairly close to us. So we get in the car and we kind of drive past, and the guy looks at us and we look at him. And so we kind of stop and talk to him for a few minutes. And he's just like, yeah, I'm not used to seeing anybody up here. I'm up here putting my deer stand. And I'm going, all the people hunt up here? And he goes, no, nobody hunts up here. There's no deer up here for some reason. He basically just went up there to get away from his family, to get a few minutes of peace and quiet during hunting season. So we asked him, we just said, hey, have you ever seen anything weird up here? And he goes, no, never. And then he goes, well, I did find these nests up here. And I'm like, what sort of nests? He said he found these like ground nests that he's never seen before, that he's hunted the whole region his entire life. This guy is like probably in his late 60s. That he had never seen them, and he had a really weird feeling about them. So we have found some things before that overlook clearings that look as if somebody has constructed a blind of some sort
Yeah.
In that same area in North Georgia.
Damien Cott just sent us some photos. I'm gonna let Joe look at them in a little bit, but yeah, we appreciate all these wild photos. We're getting some cool photos tonight on the Messenger. That's via the Facebook Messenger. Yeah, I'll show you these photos when we're done. They're pretty interesting.
And Todd Brown says about armchair experts, it's people who just do strict, like, I mean, I don't know how much Linda Godfrey got in the field. I know she got in some, but she laid the groundwork for all this stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
she gathered these stories.
Influential. I mean, I don't think she was out running around. She was too busy cataloging the stuff, and she's added far more to this than we ever will.
Absolutely. Researchers who do that kind of work are just as important.
I mean, she's pretty much the genesis of people taking a serious look at this instead of just trading campfire stories about it. So people like that have their place. It's just that what happens when people present themselves in a manner that, hey, we're out all the time. We do field research, but then it's obvious they don't. Then what happens is that everything they say becomes suspect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then especially if those people kind of become the face of this topic, it just seems like it's fluff with nothing to back it up. So you're somebody who claims you're out in the woods constantly. You're on social media and YouTube all the time. You obviously want exposure. Where's your footage of you being in the woods? Stuff like that just kind of gives people who maybe have a casual interest in this, they just think it's all fluff, that there's no substance behind it. So,
yeah.
Where do you two live? We are in upstate South Carolina. So,
yes.
Tracker, what's up, buddy? Wants to know about LBL Dogman possibly being genetically altered, making them more aggressive. I think that in that area, especially, there's an extremely good chance that something like that or something similar is happening. I think that, like we mentioned earlier, that there are some straight up paranormal demonic manifestations of these things. There are some that have no involvement with mankind or government or anything like that at all. And then there seem to be some that, for whatever reason, and if you, I think that some people are going to be coming forward soon that have some experiences that maybe kind of back that claim up, that the government's involved with at least aspects of this phenomenon. So.
Yep. Well, we are coming up on midnight, guys. Did you want to, are we good at midnight, or you want to keep
We'll
rolling?
go to midnight. We'll go a few more minutes. We'll answer some of these. Kaiju Ninja 1985, do you think there's an extraterrestrial connection with these cryptids? I don't think there's an extraterrestrial connection to UAPs. Do I think that there's a connection between these cryptids and UAPs? Absolutely. I think that if anything else, you're getting into, we're definitely
extra-dimensional.
Interdimensional, not extraterrestrial proponents at this point. So, but I think there's definitely a connection to it then. As far as wood knocking goes, we don't usually do wood knocking.
Nope.
We've heard weird knocks at night, but we don't really try to like wood knock back or anything like that at all.
Yeah, we mentioned this before. You're not going to fool one of these creatures into thinking you're one of their clan or whatever they think they're doing. You're not going to fool one of these things to think that you're one of them communicating with another one. That's just not going to happen.
All right. I think that's about it. We're hitting
midnight, so. I think we are hitting midnight. Guys, this has been such a good time. Thank you guys for all of you guys that hung in for all this and all the great questions. If you guys want us to do it again, just let us know in the comments below. We're going to put this up on the page for you guys for anybody who didn't join us tonight to enjoy later. So you guys will be able to see that up on our channel page. And I think we're going to be doing some more live streams in the future. It seems like it worked out. Everything technically was pretty sound, and you guys really seem to enjoy it. We really enjoyed it. We enjoyed hanging out with you guys tonight.
And the chat was moving fast. I'm sure there's some questions that we missed.
Yeah, I'm sure
if you want to email them to us or leave them in the comment section, I want to hear what questions people have. What comments people have. If we missed it, it's just because it was moving so fast, and not that we were choosing not to answer.
Yeah, and we might do another live stream on Friday or next Monday. So I think this went really well. I really enjoyed it. It's so fun to talk to you guys. You have no idea. It is so fun to talk to you guys. Make sure if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Turn on their notifications. And that way you know when the next live stream is coming up. I will put it on all the socials before we do it. So you guys will know that. And if you guys have any questions or encounters or photos or anything you want to send to us, you can always get in touch with us via the Facebook Messenger, of course, or hellbentholler@gmail.com. And somebody asked for our P.O. Box earlier. It's P.O. Box 777, Pelzer, South Carolina, Pelzer, South Carolina, 29669. And that should be on our website as well. As always, we appreciate you guys. We love you to death. You guys get some rest. Let's go face tomorrow and let's go have a good time. And thank you guys for joining us. Joe, you got any other parting words?
I got it. That's it. So,
all right. Thank you guys. Have a great one. Bye, guys. I love it. I love it. I love the chat. I love the chat. Bye, guys.